As I drove to work, I thought about the conversation my wife started during dinner last night. It wasn't the first time, but it was happening more often, and I didn't understand why. She wanted to know how many women I had slept with before we became exclusive, and if I ever fantasized about them during lovemaking. My answer was a definite no. My wife and I had been married for 5 years. Despite some imperfections, our marriage was strong in trust, respect, love, lovemaking, and friendship, everything important in a relationship. I believe my wife felt the same, and we were living a great life. Good jobs, a nice house in a good area, and enough money and free time to enjoy vacations, good wine, food, and entertainment. My name is William Harrison, but my friends call me Billy. My wife is Molly. I'm a 5'11" blonde-haired, blue-eyed guy of Nordic descent, with some Irish temper that I learned to control in high school through numerous fights. I stayed in good shape by playing soccer and hockey year-round and lifting weights. I still jog, play in an adult soccer league, and enjoy pond hockey. My wife, Molly, naturally exuded lovemaking appeal with her sparkling eyes, flawless skin, and captivating smile. She had a knack for making people feel at ease, getting them to open up about anything while being a great listener and non-judgmental. Though her friendliness sometimes bordered on flirting, she never crossed the line into inappropriate behavior. Molly attracted attention with her bubbly personality and enviable body. 5'7" tall, blonde hair, blue eyes, and an amazing figure, especially her legs and firm hips. She stayed fit by going to the gym 4 to 5 nights a week, which was her main hobby outside of work. I often joked about my urge to grope her whenever she walked by, and she didn't mind. Molly's personality was perfect for me, although she had one flaw that sometimes led to emotional discussions. Once she made up her mind about something, she wouldn't change it. She believed she was right, especially in non-scientific matters, making her quite stubborn on certain issues. Changing her mind was nearly impossible once she decided on something. We married right after college, having exclusively dated for the last 2 years of school. Molly didn't have many physical partners before marriage, unlike me. During my senior year of high school and the first 2 years of college, I had numerous partners. At 19, one of my first partners was an older divorced woman who taught me a lot about pleasing a woman and making her peak. Thanks to her, I became skilled at ensuring my partner's pleasure before my own. I explained this to Molly when she asked how I knew how to please her so well. While grateful for my experience, she felt jealous about missing out on different partners and physical experiences. Professionally, I work as a mechanical engineer at Abbott Labs, designing and testing injection-molded components for medical devices like ventilators and pumps. I enjoy the challenging yet low-stress job, which also allows me time and money for hobbies. My latest project is restoring a 2005 Winnebago B-Class RV for week-long trips with Molly to places like Lake Superior's North Shore, the mountains, and the ocean. Molly was a CPA working for a top national accounting and consulting firm. Her job paid well, wasn't too stressful, and involved some travel. Occasionally, she accompanied junior CPAs on audits to ensure thoroughness and proper training. Recently, she'd been traveling with Andrew, a new employee starting his 3-year path to CPA qualification. Molly once mentioned how attractive and confident Andrew was after their first trip, but hadn't talked about him much since. As I spent more time finishing the RV, I grew more excited about our upcoming trips. However, I noticed Molly wasn't as enthusiastic and seemed less bubbly and open in her communication with me. Our lovemaking life was still great, and a few times in the past weeks, Molly came home late and passionately initiated lovemaking. The last time, her underwear were already wet, indicating she was incredibly turned on by something. After one of our intense post-work lovemaking sessions, I went down to start dinner while Molly jumped into the shower. I felt that things had been off lately and decided to talk to Molly about it over dinner. Meanwhile, Molly enjoyed the hot water, but also felt a pang of guilt. She had been going to lunches, happy hours, and recently dinner and dancing with her coworker, Andrew. Their conversations had become increasingly flirtatious, crossing the boundaries of what a married woman should allow. She was obsessed with this secret and the idea of lovemaking with another man. Molly was very attracted to Andrew and had decided last week to have lovemaking with him, believing it would help her move past the obsession and refocus on our marriage. She knew I had many partners before our relationship and believed I would never cheat on her, and she would never cheat on me. But she was determined to have a weekend with Andrew and was contemplating how to discuss it with me. She loved me deeply and didn't want to hurt me, but felt that if I loved her as much as she knew I did, I would understand and we could move past it, even becoming stronger. She hoped she wasn't fooling herself, but her mind was made up. When Molly came down to the kitchen, I had prepared shrimp salads, cornbread, and poured 2 glasses of wine. As she sat, I said, "Molly, we need to talk about something, and I'm not sure how to begin." "Billy, just say what's on your mind. We love each other and can talk about anything. I also need to talk to you, but you go first." "Oh, that sounds a bit ominous. How many marriages start their end with, 'we need to talk'?" "Don't be silly, Billy. This isn't bad. It's something that will be good for me and, ultimately, good for you too. I'm not sure how to say this, but something feels off with us. You haven't been as open and loving lately." "Billy, did you forget about the amazing lovemaking we just had?" "Molly, I'm not talking about that. But since you mention it, what made you so incredibly aroused that you almost tore my clothes off?" Molly's expression shifted to concern and guilt. "If you don't like me being that aroused for you, then maybe it's your problem, not mine." I noticed her defensive attitude. "Molly, I see your concern and guilt. Can't you see it? Please tell me what's really going on. Should I be worried?" Molly looked down, realizing she needed to steer the conversation better to have a constructive discussion. "Billy, I'm sorry. That came out wrong. I need to tell you what's going on, but please remember that I love you and our life together more than anything. What we have is precious to me." "Molly, now I'm really worried. Are you having an affair?" "Billy, how could you say that? You know I would never cheat on you. I respect you too much. But I need you to listen to me fully before reacting. When I'm done, we can discuss it." "Okay, I love you and want only you. I want to have kids and grow old with you. This might be hard to hear, but please listen. Do you remember Andrew, my coworker I traveled with? I've also been having lunch with him, going to happy hour, and even had dinner with him last week." "What the hell, Molly? You said you weren't having an affair, but now you're admitting to one." "I'm not having an affair, and I haven't cheated on you. But you promised to listen. Maybe I crossed the line by not telling you. I don't love him, but we've been flirting and sharing things with physical innuendo. It felt innocent until he told me he wanted to make love to me. He's 7 years younger, fit, and handsome, and I found myself infatuated with him." I jumped up in a rage. "God damn it, Molly, are you leaving me? Do you love him? Are you sure you haven't already screwed him? And this is a nonsense way to tell me?" Molly cringed at what she had said, and how none of this was coming out the way she meant it to Billy. "No, I haven't screwed him or anyone else. That's actually part of the problem. But please listen, I love only you. Andrew is just a kid. I could never fall in love with him. But you know that I have had only a few physical experiences before meeting you, and I feel like I have been deprived of some of the experiences you got to sample before we were a couple. I kind of feel like I was cheated out of sowing some wild oats before you and I fell in love. And now knowing that this young man that I am incredibly attracted to wants to screw me, I just can't seem to get it out of my mind. Today at work, Andrew and I were flirting back and forth, and that is partially the reason that I was so incredibly aroused when I got home and needed you to love me. I felt my pulse speed up and my skin flushed as I got an incredibly sad and shocked look on my face. This was not what Molly wanted to see. She quickly tried to erase the last statement she made by saying, "Billy, I didn't say that right. I love you. And making love to you is so much more than lovemaking. It is the most fulfilling thing I have ever felt. But I can't get this young man out of my system, and I have decided to have lovemaking with him and take this one-time opportunity to get my last physical experience with another man before you and I decide to get more serious about kids, careers, etc. I feel like I deserve this, and I'm asking you to let me have this. I have told you I would never cheat on you, and I respect you, and that is all true. And that is why I am asking for you to let me have this. But I guess I am also telling you I have made up my mind to do this." Molly was stunned to see me slump in my chair, tears filling my eyes and sliding down my cheek. This wasn't how she imagined it. It was supposed to be just lovemaking, nothing more. She had to convince me. "Billy, I love only you. I want to be married to you and grow old with you. This is just lovemaking, a one-time thing to get it out of my system. I swear I'll make it up to you for the rest of our lives if you let me have this. I will never cheat on you, and that's why I'm asking for this one-time gift as proof of your love for me." I jumped up from the table, hurt and anger in my eyes. "How could you equate my approval with proof of my love? That's nonsense. Here's what I'm hearing. You have already cheated on me. You have an emotional relationship with someone from work, shared closeness details, and spent time together. It's already cheating. Are you sure you haven't slept with him already? How will you make it up to me? By having more lovemaking, spending more time, or showering me with gifts? Aren't you supposed to do that now? Billy, stop. It's not an affair, and no, I haven't slept with him. But I did kiss him a few times after happy hours. Maybe it was the booze, but the thrill of someone different turned me on. This is a one-time physical experience, not an affair. I'll never love him, and I'll always love you. I feel I need this. If you loved me as much as I thought, you would give me this. It's only love-making, not love. It doesn't mean anything, but I can't get it out of my mind. I need this, and I promise I'll make it up to you. Molly, I can't believe you're asking me this. You've already disrespected me by starting an emotional and physical relationship with this guy. You've cheated by talking about lovemaking and kissing him. To me, that's as closeness as sleeping with him. I can't believe how naive I've been. I thought you loved me as much as I love you. I would never hurt you like this. Do you even understand how much you've damaged our relationship? I thought I could always trust you. But you've shattered that trust. Billy, stop being dramatic. I love only you. You can trust me, which is why I'm telling you this. It's just about me, not you. It's meaningless lovemaking. Fine, maybe I'll find some meaningless lovemaking too and see if you still believe that. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. Billy, grow up and come back. This isn't bad. It will make me better and allow me to give you more love and attention in the future. Screwing another man will make you better? You're delusional. How can you believe this? You say you love me, but expect me to accept your infidelity. I will never get over this. If you go through with it, we're done. Do you understand? I started to cry, ran to my car, and was backing out of the driveway when Molly called after me. Billy, no. Please come back. We can get past this. I'll make it good for you. All I could do was look at her with extreme sadness and pain as I drove off into the night. It will be good for me. What the hell? This is unbelievable. God, what do I do now? Molly sat, stunned and depressed, realizing she had messed up. Why doesn't he understand how much I need this and that it won't hurt our love and relationship? But deep down, she knew it already had. They had never fought like this before. Billy had never walked out or questioned her love. Now she questioned his. She didn't want to admit she had done significant damage, but she had already planned to meet Andrew for brunch on Saturday and spend the afternoon and night having lovemaking at the Hilton, returning Sunday night to dedicate herself to Billy. She believed Billy would get over it and their relationship would improve. After 2 hours with no word from Billy, she became really concerned. He was in a bad mental state when he left. She expected a call to make up, but with no contact, she tried calling him. He didn't pick up, so she left a voicemail. Billy, I'm sorry you took this so dramatically and got hurt. Please don't be hurt. I love only you and want to be with you forever. This is about me getting something I missed in my past. Please understand and come back to me. She got ready for bed, checked her phone again, and saw no response from Billy. She lay down and drifted into a fitful sleep. I cried as I drove to the Hilton in the next suburb and checked in for the night. I spent too much time in the hotel bar, getting drunk, and fell into bed. Later, I ignored calls and a voicemail from Molly, still in shock that she thought this was okay and could claim to love me while insisting on having lovemaking outside our marriage vows. I knew how stubborn she could be, but this wasn't something I could let go. This was a marriage-ending mistake, and I had to convince her of that before it was too late. Even if I stopped her this time, would she eventually do it behind my back? That would destroy any remaining trust and respect. If I let her do this, I would never feel the same about her again. And if I agreed, would she resent me for not standing up and demanding she be faithful? There were no good options, and I felt this was the beginning of the end. My only hope was to talk her out of it and get her to go to counseling with me to understand why she felt this need. Wednesday morning, Molly woke up, moved over to cuddle with Billy, and gasped when she realized he hadn't slept in their bed. She checked the guest bedroom and the couch, but found his car was gone. Extremely upset, she saw no texts or voicemails from him. She called, but he didn't answer. After she hung up, she got a text. Molly, I'll be home at 7 p.m. tonight. Please eat before I get there. We need to have a serious discussion about our future. Molly initially thought, God, Billy, quit being so dramatic. She was angry, but then started to worry. Billy seemed to be suggesting they might not have a future together, which was the last thing she wanted. She loved him and wanted to be with him. She had to make him understand that tonight. Molly went to work, and as soon as she sat down, Andrew approached her. Good morning, Hot. You look good enough to kiss and cuddle. Are we still on for Saturday? Did you tell your husband? Should I be worried? Andrew, let me handle Billy. He won't hurt anyone. He's not sold on the idea, but he'll be okay. Yes, we're still on for Saturday, and I'm excited about it. After he left, Molly texted Billy again. Billy, are you okay? Please know that I only love you and want you. Our future together will be better and better. An hour later, I replied sarcastically, yes, sure. Molly was mad at how immature I was being, but also sad at how much this was hurting me. She believed she could make it up to me with love and attention, thinking things would soon be as good as before, if not better. Wednesday, I called in sick and, after Molly left, went back to our house. I worked on the RV, mounting the solar panel, finishing the electrical and Wi-Fi connections, getting a new toilet cassette, and filling the water tanks. I planned to finish the cabinetry on Thursday, making it road-ready. The work distracted me from my pain. With 2 hours until Molly's return, I researched divorce, finances, and counselors, forming a preliminary plan for any outcome. Then I made a list of my belongings and headed to the bank. At the bank, I canceled our joint credit card and opened one in my name. I also canceled our joint checking account and opened a new one for myself. I prepaid the mortgage for 2 months using our joint account, then split the remaining balance, with 50% going to her and 50% to my savings. Afterward, I went to a pub for a craft beer and burger, preparing for our discussion at home. Molly came home around 6 p.m. and saw I wasn't there. Unsure if I'd been home, she made a sandwich and thought about how to have a more positive discussion. When I arrived, she ran up, kissed me, and hugged me tightly. Billy, don't ever leave like that without letting me know you're okay. I know you're hurting, but I was so worried. I love you, only you. We are solid and always will be. So you knew I was hurting, and you love only me. I wish that were true, Molly, but I doubt it now. A week ago, I wouldn't believe you could ask for what you want, an affair outside our marriage. It's inconceivable to me that you claim to love me and then ask for permission to commit infidelity. Billy, don't you dare say I don't love you. It's not cheating if you approve, and it's only lovemaking just one time. Stop being so dramatic and immature, Molly. You want to talk about drama? I'm looking at the woman I loved, trying to convince me that she loves me, while asking to have lovemaking with another man for a weekend and then go back to how we were. That will never happen. How would you feel if I slept with someone else and told you it was just lovemaking? That's not fair, and you know it. Billy, you've had dozens of women and all kinds of experiences. I didn't have that chance. If you went out and had lovemaking with someone, I would kick you out and not know if I could forgive you. Why should it be different for me? Why shouldn't I kick you out? Why do you think I can forgive you? Molly, teary-eyed, said, Billy, I couldn't live without you. I love you and want to be with you. Nonsense, Molly. You wouldn't be proposing this if you meant it. Have you already agreed to this? Did you talk to him today? Yes, I talked to him. This Saturday, he's picking me up and I'll be back Sunday evening. On Monday, I'll be the hottest, most loving wife you could hope for. You already were that. But if you go through with this, you never will be again. Molly gasped, recoiled to the kitchen, and sat down, pleading with her voice and eyes. Billy, please know I love you so much. Don't let this hurt our marriage. You are my husband, my lover, my best friend, the father of our future children. You are my everything. Molly, if that were true, you wouldn't consider doing this on Saturday. This conversation is going nowhere. If you go through with this, we're done. I'll be back Friday night. Let's spend that night together. Billy, don't walk out on me again. We need to get through this, please. Friday night. I'll bring dinner around 7 p.m. What time is Andrew picking you up Saturday? I'll tell him 11 a.m., but you don't have to leave. I want you to meet him. Jesus, Molly, if I see him, I'll kick the crap out of him. Why would I want to meet the guy who's trying to destroy our marriage? Think hard about this before Friday. Billy, no, wait. Please don't leave like this. Tell me you're okay, that this won't hurt us. Molly, I'll never be okay with you having lovemaking with anyone but me. If you want to sleep with others, get a divorce. Your request today has already hurt us more than you realize. If you cancel this and promise to go to counseling with me, maybe we'll be okay. If not, we're finished. Tell me your answer Friday night and think hard about it. Billy, don't give me ultimatums and don't walk out. We will be all right, even better after this. Yeah, right. Pigs are flying. Unbelievable, I said sarcastically as I walked out the door and turned off the voice recorder. I headed back to the Hilton, booking a room for Wednesday and Thursday night. I called my boss and explained I had a family emergency, needing the rest of the week off. He reluctantly agreed without asking for details. Molly slumped over the table after I left. How could he be so stubborn, she thought. She was sure I would never leave her, but wondered if we had already damaged our relationship beyond repair. If so, would going ahead with her plan make it worse? She was obsessed with the idea of being with Andrew and decided to compromise by agreeing to marriage counseling while still seeing Andrew for the weekend. She dragged herself to bed, her thoughts racing. Billy was her world, and she realized the pain and anger this was causing both of us. Did she really need this? But she felt trapped, having already committed to it. She believed Billy's arguments were unreasonable, thinking he had dozens of women to look back on during restless times. She had never had that. This was just Zek's one time, just for her. He needed to get over himself in this situation. On Thursday, after Molly left for work, I returned home and started moving my belongings into the RV, making sure to take things Molly wouldn't miss. I also went to the thrift store to donate clothes I never wore. I took my tools, sports equipment, and recreational items to my best friend Tom's house, along with a couple of pen and ink drawings my uncle had done that I knew Tom would appreciate. We sat down for a beer, and I explained my situation. Tom looked at me incredulously and said, "Billy, you've got to be kidding. No way would Molly do that to you." "Are you sure about this? Maybe something is wrong with her." "Crap, I'm not sure of anything. My whole world has been turned upside down in a week, and it's like Molly's a different person. I don't get it. The love I have for her is under attack and weakens with every excuse she makes for why this will be good for our marriage. She's gone crazy. Can't you forgive and forget? Get some counseling and move on?" "Hell no. I've told her we can do that if she doesn't sleep with the guy. But if she does, I don't see any way back. I've tried talking her out of it. Now I'm going to see if I can give her so many peeks and such great love-making Friday night that she'll listen to reason. It's my last chance. Good luck, man. Let me know if I can do anything to help. I mean, not with the peaks, but to ease your pain. I hate to see you guys hurting. You were my role model for a strong, healthy marriage." Well, I guess both our illusions have been shattered. I never saw this coming. I'm doing everything I can not to go strike the living crap out of the guy. Well, if it comes to that, let me know. I'll help with the payback. Okay, I'll think about it. Take care, bud. I'm getting a new phone and number, and I'll text it to you. Later, brother. Keep calm and hang in there. I went to Verizon, got a new phone and number, and changed our current plan to Molly's name only. Then I took the RV for a test run and was pleased with the results. I finished the cabinetry, got new license tags and insurance, and was ready to go. I cleared my personal emails and documents from our home computer, essentially erasing my past life. I composed an email to family, friends, and coworkers explaining Molly's actions and my response. If I couldn't talk her out of this, I would explain she chose to have an affair, despite my objections, and knowing it would end our marriage. I prayed I wouldn't have to send it, but I wanted everyone to understand what happened. I also attached the voice recording from the other evening. On Friday, I consulted a divorce lawyer who said that with our comparable incomes and no kids, it would be a 50-50th split of assets. The only uncertainty was whether she would get half of my 401k, which had over $200,000. She had a defined pension plan, complicating the division. I decided I would withdraw the money, taking a 40% tax hit, rather than lose half to a cheating wife. I planned to wait until after the weekend, hoping to persuade Molly to reconsider. As Friday approached, I felt our future and my love for her were in her hands, and I prayed she would make the right choice. I bought shrimp, swordfish, and a Caesar salad, started the grill, put white wine on ice, mixed gin and tonics, and waited for Molly to come home. She was excited to see me cooking. "Thank God you came home, Billy. I missed you so much. Promise me you won't leave like that again. You love me. I love you. We need to be together." I took her into my arms and gave her a long, tender kiss. "Molly, why don't you take a shower and put on something hot? Bring a G&T with you. When you come back down, I'll grill the food and we'll enjoy dinner. It might be our last, but tonight, let's celebrate our marriage." "Billy, stop talking like that. You're upsetting me by questioning our marriage. I'm getting annoyed. I've told you repeatedly that I love only you. This isn't about you. It's something I need to get out of my system." "Molly, we've discussed this enough. Let's drop it for now. Enjoy your G&T, shower, and we can have a nice dinner and a pleasant evening." "Okay, but stay with me tonight. Don't leave me worrying. I'll be back in something that shows you how much I appreciate you." Molly went upstairs to shower. When she came back down, I gasped. She wore a French maid outfit with a little white cap, a tight white blouse showing her assets and midriff, black thigh-high silk stockings, a short skirt, and 4-inch heels. "My God, Molly, you look incredibly hot." I want you to see a preview of the next few weeks. I bought other outfits you'll love just as much. Now let's grill the food. I'm hungry, but I really want to get to dessert." She winked. We hurried through dinner, finishing the G&Ts and most of the first bottle of wine. When I couldn't wait any longer, I lifted her into my arms, carried her upstairs, and laid her on the bed. She reached for my belt and zipper, but I stopped her. "Tonight is for you, Molly. I'm going to worship your body and make this lovemaking unforgettable, so you understand how good we are together and why we should belong only to each other. We do belong to each other, honey, and that will never change. Please, just make love to me tonight. Let's move past the stress of the last few days and cement our love." We made love that night. When we were done, she was completely satisfied and soon drifted off to sleep. Molly woke up at 8:30 a.m., knowing it was time to get ready. Andrew would pick her up at 11 o'clock. She felt a mix of guilt, anxiety, and lust. After last night's lovemaking, she briefly wondered what she was doing. How could anything be better? But she felt committed and decided to follow through. She heard me in the kitchen and smelled bacon, eggs, and coffee. Putting on her robe, she came down to see me. "Billy, last night was incredible. That's what I see in our future. I love you so much and thank you." I didn't respond, but finished the eggs and asked if she wanted any. "I'd better not eat now, Billy. Thanks. Andrew and I are going out for brunch at 11 o'clock. I need to shower and get ready. Please stay so we can hug and kiss goodbye." "Molly, I won't beg you anymore. I'll just ask one last time. Are you sure you want to have lovemaking with a man who isn't your husband?" "Billy, stop. It's just one-time lovemaking. It changes nothing about my love for you." I looked at her with pain and sorrow and shook my head. "I won't leave until I tell you goodbye." Molly flinched at my words, sensing a finality that made her shudder. "Billy, I love you and this will be okay, you'll see. I just need to get this out of my system. We'll be stronger in the future." "Yeah, right, Molly. It's incredibly sad you believe that." She flushed, tears forming as she ran to the bathroom. Why couldn't he just get past this? Let her have this fling and they could move on with her making it up to him for this gift. My God, she thought. This has changed Billy. I'll have to work hard to ease his pain. He loves me so much and always gives me what I need. This will be no different. She showered, applied makeup, and wore a hot but tasteful dress, thigh-high stockings and heels. When she came down with her weekend bag at 10:30, it felt like a knife in my heart seeing her dressed for another man. Billy, you're okay, right? You know I love you, don't you? And you love me. Didn't last night show how we can get past this and how great our life will be? Molly, I wanted last night to be special for us. It was a celebration of our marriage, and I wanted it to be a memory we could carry forever. Billy, don't say our last night together. That's cruel. You're making me feel guilty for one meaningless weekend of lovemaking I need to get out of my system. Of course, we'll be together and better than ever. She moved to kiss and hug me, but I turned away. Molly, our night is over. You chose a weekend of meaningless lovemaking over your husband. These kisses don't matter anymore. Billy, stop it. It's not like that. This is one and done, and I deserve it. You have history with dozens of women to fantasize about, and I have nothing. I need this to get it out of my system. It isn't love, and doesn't affect our relationship or my love for you. Yes, Molly, this is one and done. Before she could respond, a car honked outside. Billy, stop the drama. I'll be back Sunday night, and you'll still be my only love and life partner. The horn honked again, and Molly asked, Should I introduce Andrew so you see he's just a kid I'm attracted to, not a threat? I looked at her with pain and anger and said calmly, Don't let him in or I'll break his nose, jaw, and crush him. I'll enjoy his screams. Molly shrunk back, shocked by my anger. Please, Billy, let me have this one and done, and I'll be back to love you forever. She picked up her bag, walked to the door, and turned to smile. But seeing my pain, she blew a kiss and said, Billy, Sunday night and beyond, I'll be the best wife and partner. I love you. Goodbye, Molly. I waved. She stood there briefly, contemplating something before walking out the door. I sat down in a kitchen chair and cried, feeling I had done everything possible to prevent this marriage-ending affair. Molly seemed to be in her own world, justifying that this was necessary for her and beneficial for us. After half an hour of crying, I got up and began moving my belongings to the RV. In the bedroom, I noticed Molly had left her wedding rings in a bowl on her dresser. I put them in my pocket as my sorrow turned to growing anger. 2 hours later, I had packed all my important items. The paintings, sketches, and sculptures my uncle left me were carefully wrapped, boxed, and placed under the RV's queen-size bed. My clothes didn't all fit, so I quickly sorted through them and threw the rejects in the garage trash. Walking around the house with anger and pain seething, I saw our wedding album with 40 photos from our wedding 5 years ago. What once brought me joy and peace now intensified my pain and anger. I ran to the garage, grabbed a box cutter, and slashed an X through several of the photos, cutting out the triangle portion with our faces and tossing them into the fireplace. I went to the desk, wrote my final letter to Molly, tears falling on the paper. I placed the letter and a check for her half of our joint accounts into an envelope and wrote her name on it. I set the photo album and the letter on the kitchen table, removed my wedding ring, and placed it on top. I scheduled an email to all our friends, relatives, and contacts for Monday at 9 a.m., knowing I'd be long gone by then. I walked out, got into my RV, and drove away from my old life. It was now mid-Saturday afternoon, and Molly and Andrew had enjoyed brunch and checked into the hotel he booked for the weekend. They undressed slowly, with Molly feeling excited at seeing another man unclothed and aroused. He led her to the bed, kissed her a few times, and then tried to go straight to lovemaking. She told him, "Relax, Andrew. Take your time. We have all day today and tomorrow to enjoy this. How about you go down on me and get me warmed up?" "Molly, I don't do that and find it kind of disgusting. Here, let me get you warmed up." He then jammed his fingers into her for a few minutes. Though it wasn't pleasant or hot to her, he quickly moved to the missionary position. He grunted through about 2 minutes and yelled, "I'm going to climax. Do it with me, Molly." With that, he was done. He rolled off and laid back on the bed. Molly lay there in disbelief. She wasn't even close to climaxing and was barely aroused. Andrew jumped up and ran to the bathroom, saying he needed to clean himself up and would bring her a washcloth. She turned away from the bathroom, wondering what she was doing and what she had done to cause Billy so much pain for something that was turning out to be more meaningless than she thought. She grabbed her cell phone from the bedside table and quickly composed a text to Billy. "Billy, my love, please know that I love only you. Please tell me that you are okay and that you love me too. I can't wait until I see you again." Andrew came back, and being young, he was ready to go again. They had lovemaking 3 times that afternoon, and although she finally climaxed the 3rd time, it was her own effort. They got up, dressed, and went out to dinner. Dinner was awkward, with small talk and no real connection, either physically or mentally, between them. The magic she thought she felt before was gone. They danced after dinner, but it felt like dancing with her brother or uncle. The physical attraction she convinced herself was strong had disappeared. Although Andrew wanted to return to the room quickly, she kept ordering drinks, putting him off until they were both very drunk and had trouble getting back to the room. When they got there, she quickly stripped off her clothes, collapsed onto the bed, turned away from Andrew, and went to sleep. In the morning, she woke up with a hangover and could feel Andrew snoring beside her. She decided the damage was already done, so she should give it one more try to see if she could have any memorable lovemaking with the young man. She tried to give Andrew a morning BJ, determined to turn him on enough to do something exciting in bed. Andrew woke up, enjoying it, and without warning, moving up to him, she said, "How did you like that, baby?" She moved in to kiss him, and he said, "Oh, gross, I'm not kissing that mouth. Can you please clean up, brush, and then come back to bed?" She grabbed her phone in disgust, went into the bathroom, and locked the door. She got in the shower, washed herself as if trying to wash off a plague, dried off, and sat down on the toilet. She checked her phone and saw that Billy had not responded to her texts. She tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. She sent him another text. "Billy, I love you. Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay, and we can get past this. This has turned into a meaningless and miserable mistake, and I know I want only you forever. I'll be home as soon as I can to hug you and tell you how much I love you. Please let me know you are okay." She convinced Andrew to go down for breakfast, and as they were finishing, she said, "Andrew, this was a mistake for me. I only love my husband, and this weekend with you has shown me that no one can compare with him. I'm going to go up to the room, pack my bag, and leave now. I'll get a cab. I don't want to see you again for lunch, happy hour, or dinner, and I'd appreciate it if we could avoid each other at work. I'm sorry, but this was just a major mistake." "Well, screw you, witch. You're the one who wanted this so badly and talked me into it. Go ahead and run back to your husband and try to forget how great the lovemaking with me was. There are plenty of women better looking than you who would love to be with me." Andrew, you're just a boy, and you don't have a clue how to please a woman. Get out of your delusion." With that, she walked up to the room, packed her things, and left. Molly grabbed a cab and got home around 3 p.m. on Sunday. The first thing she noticed was that the big RV that had taken up half of her driveway was gone. Wow, I guess Billy actually finished that thing, and he must have decided to go for a test drive or an overnight trip. I wish I could have been here for that maiden voyage, and I'm surprised and bummed out that he didn't wait for me. As she entered the house, she sensed that something was different. The first physical change she noticed was that the oil painting of the waves crashing onto Moonlight Bay in Encinitas that Billy's uncle had painted was no longer hanging above the fireplace. She looked around and saw that many of his other drawings and paintings were gone, as were the sculptures of the bison his uncle had made that sat on the mantel. "Oh no, Billy! What have you done? I'm home!" She screamed into the house, even though she knew no one was there to hear it. She pulled out her phone and saw that Billy still hadn't responded to any of her texts. She called his phone, and when the Verizon voice immediately responded, "This cell phone number is no longer in service," she let out a scream and sank to the floor. "Oh God, no! What have I done? Oh, Billy! How could you do this? How could you leave me like this?" She got up, trying to slow the stream of tears and gasps, and moved as quickly as she could to the kitchen. She fell to her knees again when she saw Billy's wedding ring on top of a letter to her lying on their wedding album. She sank into a chair, picked up the ring, and stared at it, unable to believe what was happening and what it all meant. She ripped open the letter and started to wail as she tried to read it through. "Molly, as you can guess, this is my final goodbye. Maybe I'm a coward, but I couldn't face you after you walked away from me and our marriage. I found your wedding rings in the bowl on your dresser, which perfectly symbolized how you abandoned our marriage. You knew that wearing the rings would mean admitting you were cheating, ruining your idea of a free pass for the weekend. I think you believed without a doubt that you could sleep with someone else and return to me, thinking our marriage would remain unchanged. I don't know how you could think it was okay to break our vows, humiliate and disrespect me, and consider it just a harmless weekend fling. But the reality is, it meant everything. It showed me that your love for me, if it existed, was nowhere near my love for you. It was far from what I deserved and what I naively believed I had. You hurt me more than anyone ever has. You took my love, pulled it out of my chest and stomped on it. You cheated the moment you started flirting with your lover. You sealed it with kisses at happy hours and dinners, thinking it was okay. And you delivered the final blow by assuming I would be fine with you having an affair. How could you think you deserved it and that if I loved you, I would accept it? I did everything to pull you back, but you ignored me. I told you our love, marriage, and friendship could never be the same, but you called me immature and dramatic. I suggested counseling to save our marriage if you stopped the fling before it happened, but you dismissed me. I warned that our last night of lovemaking would be the last time we were together if you went through with the affair, but you ignored me, assuming I would be there for you no matter what. I don't understand how you could think I would be okay with this. It's like you didn't know me at all, and evidently, I didn't know you because I trusted you and never thought you could destroy me like this. I could have physically stopped you, but I knew that would lead to resentment and a slow end of the marriage. You were kidding yourself thinking it was a one-time thing. If the lovemaking was bad, you would seek another fling to get it out of your system. If it was good, you would crave it again. You likely wouldn't have told me about future infidelities after seeing what we are going through now. But I knew they would come. I guess we'll never know. I can't be in a relationship without trust, and mine and you is completely broken. I couldn't love you again, wondering if you were thinking of someone else. When you walked out the door, you took all the love, respect, trust, and friendship you claimed to have for me and washed it away. I can't forgive you, trust you again, or even be friends. I have to cut you out of my life just like you cut my love out of my chest. A few practical things. I have split our assets and paid the mortgage for the next 2 months. Your 50% of our joint accounts is enclosed in this envelope. Our Verizon joint account is canceled as of Monday. You'll need your own. I've canceled our insurance and joint credit cards. I've taken my name off the mortgage and written a quitclaim deed to you. The house is yours to sell or live in. I don't care. It's not my home anymore, and I'll never be back. I sold my car and left in the RV. Sometime down the road, I will pawn your wedding rings for gas money so they'll serve some purpose. In my anger and pain, I did a couple of things. I took a box cutter to the wedding album, and you'll find some pieces in the fireplace. Go ahead and burn them. It's a fitting cremation of our marriage. I've also pinned an email to our friends, relatives, co-workers, and contacts about your decision to cheat and my decision to leave. You have a day or two to prepare your story, but maybe you can start by taking responsibility. The good news for you is you now have my permission to sleep with whoever you want. It would be nice if you didn't pick married men since you've already ruined enough lives. But go ahead and find whatever you were looking for that made you throw us away. You can divorce me, sell the house, move, do whatever you want. I don't care, and I leave that to you. Should I find a woman who truly loves me, then I'll worry about a divorce. I quit my job, cashed out my $401K, and my only plan now is to never see you again, and to take a left out of the driveway. Other than that, I'll forge a new life and hope to leave your memory behind. Goodbye, Billy. Molly had to read the letter several times to truly believe it was happening. She could see Billy's tear stains on the sheets as he wrote it. She got up, saw the damage to the wedding album, and barely made it to the sink before throwing up and nearly blacking out. My God, what have I done? How could I have been so self-centered and stupid? How could I destroy the only man I'll ever really love? I had it all, and gave it up for the worst, most pathetic lovemaking, and an a-hole who just wanted to get in my pants and didn't know what to do when he did. Molly crawled to the couch in the living room, curled up into the fetal position, and cried herself to sleep. She couldn't believe she had been so stubborn and fixated on her lust for a new lovemaking partner that she ignored all of Billy's warnings and ultimatums. She had destroyed her life in a matter of weeks, and now knew she would pay the price for her betrayal forever. Billy drove to the banks of the Mississippi and decided to follow it from Minneapolis-St. Paul down to New Orleans. Once there, he would decide whether to turn left or right. The long driving hours were filled with thoughts of Molly and whether he was doing the right thing, but he decided not to make any decisions for weeks. He couldn't even envision being friends with her, much less partners. However, if his anger subsided and it became more important to be with her than without her, he might open a dialogue, but he gave it less than a 25% chance of happening, and it would be a long road back. Molly had to endure the humiliation and pain of explaining her foolishness and reasoning for the fling to her parents, relatives, and friends. She could tell none of them would understand her reasoning or take her side. She now couldn't understand her reasoning either, much less explain it. She had to admit how horribly she misled herself into thinking the fling wouldn't affect them. She had to explain how she didn't realize until now how it would destroy her marriage and her only love. She had to take responsibility for being incredibly self-centered and stupid about the importance of her fidelity to both Billy and herself. She saw how she had lost her family and friends' respect, and how they began to distance themselves from her. Molly called Billy's best friend, Tom Weekly, pleading for Billy's location, his phone number, or any information about him. She begged Tom to tell Billy that she loved him, had finally understood and taken responsibility for cheating, and would do anything to get him to talk to her again. Tell him I love him. I miss him. I messed up badly and truly understand that now. I'll do anything to fix this if he gives me a chance. I'll never divorce him. I'm committed to our marriage vows and won't date or have any male relationships while we're still married. She waited every week, hoping for a call or response, but it never came. She stopped going out with anyone, led a lonely life at work and home, and prayed that something would eventually bring Billy back to her. She remained faithful to their marriage, waiting for him. About a month after Molly's affair, Andrew's doorbell rang. When he answered, a man in a ski mask with a police baton quickly shot him twice in the head and neck until he collapsed, then kicked him several times in the lap. As Andrew lay in pain, the attacker told him to never mess with married women, and then walked away. As time passed, both Molly and Billy thought about what happened, and neither could understand how she thought it would be okay. 3 years later, Molly was still waiting for Billy, but he never returned. One morning, as Molly was about to leave for work, a man approached and asked her name. Once Molly confirmed, he handed her an envelope. "You have been served." Molly did not cry or react. She just stood there. She let out a small smile and said, "All the best, Billy. I hope you have a wonderful life." Growing up in a small town, I was always surrounded by people who knew each other. Family bonds, friendships, and loyalty meant everything. It wasn't until later in life that I realized how fragile those connections could be. My brother Larry and I shared nearly everything, or so I thought. We were twins and looked alike, but we couldn't have been more different. I enjoyed working on mechanical projects, helping out at our father's junkyard, while Larry was more drawn to sales and smooth talking. As time passed, though, life revealed the cracks in relationships we had taken for granted. What I didn't see coming was how those small cracks would eventually grow into a wide chasm between us. My life changed significantly when I married Abigail, a strong, successful woman who had her own career in insurance. We built a home together and seemed to have a perfect marriage. But over time, I began to notice small things, little signs that something was off. Abigail's behavior shifted, and there were moments when I couldn't shake the feeling that my trust was misplaced. I never imagined that this unease would unravel not only my marriage, but also the fragile peace between my brother and me. It's strange how quickly things can change. My whole world turned around the day I went on a fishing trip with a couple of close friends. Meanwhile, my wife Abby was at work when she got a disturbing phone call. "Is this Abigail Bell?" the caller asked. "Yes, speaking. How can I help you?" she replied, confused. "We have your husband. He's been taken hostage, and we are demanding a ransom of $250,000. You have 24 hours to get the money, or he will be eliminated. Don't involve the police, or he dies. Expect another call at 3 p.m. for further instructions." Shocked and terrified, Abby tried to compose herself. "What? Who is this? Is this a joke?" The caller's cold tone left her paralyzed with fear. She had no idea what to do next. I had gone on a fishing trip with some friends to Lake Erie for 3 days, leaving my cell phone behind so we could enjoy the peace. Me and my buddies were on my boat, drinking beer and fishing, having a great time. We didn't get out much, so we were enjoying ourselves. My boat was a decent size, 35 feet, and could comfortably fit 6 people if they were friendly. We rented a cabin nearby to stay in overnight. For the past 6 years, we've done this kind of fishing and camping trip once a year. While I was downing another beer, the Coast Guard sped up to us, stopping next to the boat with their weapons drawn. They asked, "Is one of you Terry Bell?" "That's me," I answered. "What's going on here? Why are you pointing weapons at us?" "Sir, we were told you've been hijacked and held for ransom." "I assure you I'm fine. These are my friends, Joe and Al. They both work for me. We came here to fish for a few days without phones, so we wouldn't be disturbed. Now, could you please lower your weapons?" "Sorry, Mr. Bell. We need to board your boat and take a look around. Do you have any weapons on board?" "Just the usual emergency items like flare weapons. Come aboard." They quickly searched the boat and checked our IDs. Afterward, they apologized, but insisted I come with them. The police needed to speak with me at home. "Joe, Al, you guys keep fishing. I'll try to get back to the cabin tonight or tomorrow. If I don't, make sure the boat's secured and everything's locked up." I left with the Coast Guard and headed to shore. I had met Al and Joe in prison. 12 years ago, I was convicted of receiving stolen property, which I'll explain later. Joe and Al also met in prison while serving time for attack. Each of them had caught their wife cheating and knock up her lover. They could have been charged with attempted homicide, but they took a plea deal for attack. Both divorced afterward. We became good friends and looked out for each other in prison. After my release, I promised to help them when they came up for parole. I served 3 years before getting out. My father owned an auto parts warehouse, where I'd worked since high school, and I took over the business when he got sick and passed away. About a year after my release, Joe and Al were paroled. At the hearing, my dad and I promised them jobs at the warehouse, and Dad mentioned he had trailers near the site where they could live. Because they had jobs and a place to live, they were granted parole 8 years ago. Both thanked my dad and me. They were excellent workers, now they're close friends. Over time, they saved enough to buy used cars and became mechanics and tow truck drivers. They were jacks of all trades and could handle anything at a junkyard. All they needed was a fresh start. They even began dating, eventually married, and bought homes of their own. They were always grateful to my father and me for helping them out. They continued to work for us and were well paid. The police gave me a ride home since I didn't have my car. As soon as I walked in the door, Abby rushed over and hugged me. "Thank God you're okay. I was so worried." "Where have you been?" "On the lake, fishing. That was until the Coast Guard came up to the boat with weapons drawn. What the hell is going on?" A man stepped forward. "I'm Detective Abel. I'm in charge of the case. We need to know where you've been for the past 24 hours. Nonsense. You dragged me away from my fishing trip, and I want to know why before I say anything. Fair enough. Your wife called this morning saying she got a call at work claiming you were hijacked and they were demanding a ransom of $250,000. The caller said they would call your house at 3 o'clock. We're all set up and waiting for the call. This has to be some kind of sick joke. Who the hell would snatch me? I own a damn warehouse and trailer park. What, are they after auto parts or a broken-down horse? Abby, did they say anything else? They told me I had 24 hours to raise the money, or you'd be eliminated. And if I contacted the police, you would die. They said they'd call at 3 o'clock with further instructions. I was terrified. They said if I called the police, you'd be dead. But I didn't know what to do. So I called anyway. I was so scared. Abby started crying. Mr. Bell, your wife made the right call. She couldn't handle this alone. That's easy for you to say. It wasn't your damn life at stake. What now? I'm here. I'm fine. Can't you all just leave my house? Mr. Bell, we have to take threats like this seriously. We'll stay and see if the call comes in. Now, can you account for your whereabouts over the last 24 hours? Sure. Joe and Al picked me up early yesterday morning. We rented a cabin by the lake for 4 days. We drove there, took my boat out, and went fishing. We arrived in the evening, cooked dinner, and hung out in the cabin. This morning, we had breakfast, and then the Coast Guard found us. That's it, you know the rest. It was almost 3 o'clock, and the detective had set up a phone beacon in the kitchen. Abby was ready to answer the call, and I sat in the living room with 2 other detectives, drinking coffee. A speakerphone on the coffee table allowed us all to listen. Detective Abel had Abby tell me she'd contacted her lawyer to help get the money, and he would pose as the lawyer if the caller asked. I just sat there shaking my head. Damn it, I could still be fishing, I muttered to the officers. Right at 3 o'clock, the phone rang, and Abby answered. Mrs. Bell, glad to see you made it home early for my call. Is the money ready? The disguised voice asked. Not yet. I contacted a lawyer to help me get the money, Abby replied. What? I told you if you contacted anyone, your husband would be dead. Did you also call the police? No, just a lawyer. I'm sorry, I didn't know how to get that much money. You only told me not to call the police. Please, don't hurt my husband. Put the damn lawyer on the phone. Abby handed the phone to Detective Abel, who played along. This is John Wells, the Bell's attorney. What do you need? We need the money or Bell dies. Is that clear enough for you? If we find out anyone contacted the cops, he's dead. This isn't a damn game. I'm not playing either. Before we give you that kind of money, we need proof you have Mr. Bell and that he's alive. We heard some noise on the other end, then a voice. Abby, it's me, Larry. These masked men grabbed me right after you left the hotel this morning. Please, give them what they want. Then we heard a loud thud, like someone being punched. Damn it, I shouted. That's my loser brother, Larry. What the hell does he mean you were with him this morning? As you can see, sweet Abby, we know you lied to us. Was that your husband in the background? Does he know you've been fooling around with his brother? Looks like we got the wrong Bell. We went to the warehouse yesterday and were told Mr. Bell was on vacation. We stopped by your house and followed you to your hotel. The room was registered to Mr. and Mrs. Bell, so we assumed it was your husband. After you left this morning, we took the wrong Bell. He kept telling us we had the wrong guy until he mentioned having a twin brother. What now that you don't have Terry Bell? The detective asked, still pretending to be the lawyer. $300,000 by 9 o'clock tomorrow morning, or Larry Bell dies. The extra money's for the lies and the trouble you caused. We'll call tomorrow morning with drop-off instructions. No more games. The line went dead, and I stood up, furious, yelling at Abby. You cheating strumpet! You've been messing around with my brother? I'm not paying a dime to save him. Let those pricks deal with him. It'll save me the trouble of doing it myself. 2 officers stood between Abby and me, telling me to sit down. I walked over to the fridge, grabbed a beer, and turned on the TV. I want nothing to do with my gigolo brother or my cheating wife. As soon as this is over, we're getting a divorce. The detective asked Abby if what the hijacker said was true, needing to know her every move since she left the house the previous morning. She was upset and crying, but I ignored her. I didn't care anymore. Abby started explaining to the detective, but tried to keep her voice low. I still heard everything. She admitted to meeting Larry at the motel, even though his wife thought he was out of town. They'd been having an affair for months. I felt my anger rising as I realized I had been played. After dinner last night, we went to our room. I'm not going into details about how we made love, Abby said. I cringed. Love-making? Larry never loved anyone. He only wanted you because you were married to me. He didn't care about you, and now neither do I. Abby kept talking, but she was clearly scared of me. She seemed relieved the police were there. We said goodbye in the morning and agreed to meet again in the evening. I went to work to keep things looking normal. That's when I got the call that my husband had been hijacked, and I realized how worried I was about him. I didn't know what to do, so I called the police. That's all I've told you. Did you plan to return to the room tonight? The detective asked, turning away from me. Yes, we had the room for 2 nights. Damn strumpet, I yelled. One of the officers jumped up to restrain me, but I stayed seated. I wasn't about to end up in jail again. Larry and I were twins, but we couldn't have been more different. I liked working with machines, while Larry was always chasing women. We got along as kids only because I let things slide. Whenever I had a girlfriend, Larry always managed to charm her away. He was smoother, more charismatic, and usually dumped them after he got what he wanted. My approach was simple. If the girls wanted Larry that badly, they could have him. I wasn't in love with any of them anyway. Our mother passed away from cancer when we were 18, and we lived with my father until we finished high school. Larry wanted to go to college and become a salesman. He was always good at talking. The only person Larry cared about was himself. I, on the other hand, stayed home to help Dad with the scrap metal business. To most people, it was just junk. But Dad's fortune was over $1 million tied up in inventory. I didn't go to college, choosing instead to help grow the business. Dad was proud of the work we did together. One night at a party, I met a girl, and we started dating. Within a year, we got married, and she moved in with me and Dad. Eventually, Dad gave us the house and moved into one of his trailers to give us more privacy. Over the next few years, my wife Beth and I had 2 children, and life was going well, until Larry came home from college. One day, I saw him flirting with Beth, and that was the breaking point. I slapped him hard and warned him, "If you ever come near her again, I'll destroy you." Beth stayed silent. She knew to keep quiet when I was angry. I had never accused her of anything, but I had my suspicions. Neither she nor Larry denied what I said that day. After that, we didn't see much of each other. Larry kept his distance from Beth and took a job as a traveling sales rep for a window and siding company. His job allowed him to meet plenty of women. He had the gift of gab and always found a way into the lives of wealthy women. He lived off them until he moved on to the next one. His job didn't pay for the lifestyle he wanted, but he got by because of the women he dated. It's been 12 years since I married Beth. We had a solid marriage, though I always had my doubts. We had 2 wonderful children, and because of them, I didn't dwell on the possibility of cheating. Around that time, my father's health started to decline after a stroke. I reached out to Larry asking if he wanted to join the salvage business, but he just laughed, saying he wanted nothing to do with it. Dad was disappointed, but I assured him I would always be there for him. One day, a man came to us with several cars he wanted to sell. Dad made an under-the-table deal, which wasn't the first time he'd done that to avoid paying extra taxes. Unfortunately, he didn't check the VIN numbers on the cars. A few days later, law enforcement showed up with a search warrant. The man had told the police he'd dumped the cars in our lot, and they were preparing to arrest my dad for receiving stolen property. There was no way I was letting Dad go to jail. I stepped forward to speak with the agents. "Sir, I took those cars. My father had no idea. I was planning to handle the registration, but didn't get the chance. All they needed was someone to arrest, and that someone was me." I was arrested, pleaded guilty, and was sentenced to 5 years in prison. My father was heartbroken and promised he'd do anything for me. I hugged him, and he tearfully apologized. The day I was taken away, I realized my dad wouldn't survive prison. He already had a weak heart, and I couldn't bear the thought of him dying alone in there. Beth left me and filed for divorce 2 months after I went to prison. She said she didn't want to live alone, and of course, she took the kids with her. She soon started dating an insurance agent and married him a few months later. Losing my kids hurt, but I said to hell with her. I kept in touch with my father through letters, and he visited me every month. Several of his cousins helped him run the salvage business while I was locked up. I couldn't do much from prison, but at least Dad trusted his cousins who were a bit younger than him. In prison, I met Al and Joe. They seemed like decent guys. Both of them had caught their wives with lovers and knocked them so badly the men had to be hospitalized. I could relate. I almost did the same to my own brother. I promised them that when they got out on parole, I'd help them however I could. I even talked to my father, and he agreed to hire them when the time came. After serving 3 years of my 5-year sentence, I was released. I was glad to be free and to help my father again. He made me part owner of the business, telling me that when he passed, it would be mine, and Larry would have no claim to it. His cousins were running things well, so we kept them on. Dad joked that they worked a little harder once I got back, which made us both smile. The following year, we hired Al and Joe, fulfilling the promise I made to them. They were grateful to us and said they always would be. Several years passed, and things were going well. Business was booming, and I made sure every vehicle that came through was inspected thoroughly. I wasn't going back to jail. One day, I rushed my father to the hospital after he had a heart attack. I called Larry, and he made it in time to say goodbye before Dad died. As promised, I inherited the rest of the business, the trailer park, and the house where I had lived with Beth and Dad. Larry got Dad's savings, stocks, and bonds, about $300,000, and left happy. He had recently married a wealthy widow named Cora, who owned a real estate business with her late husband. Cora was smart enough to have a prenup to protect her fortune. She was successful, intelligent, and attractive, though I think loneliness drew her to Larry. She could have done so much better. It was at one of Cora and Larry's parties where I met my current wife, Abigail. Abby was beautiful, with a great figure and legs. She could have easily been another one of Larry's conquests, but she was friends with Cora. Abby had been married and divorced twice, with no kids. She worked at an insurance office in downtown Cleveland. Abby and I started dating regularly, and soon we decided to get married. I incorporated the salvage business to protect it from anyone trying to claim it. Abby brought $400,000 into the marriage, and I didn't mind getting an advance on it. She believed we'd be together for life, even though she'd been married twice before. I didn't mind either. In fact, the prenup protected my assets too. I knew her savings came from her exes. I cared for her, but I'm not sure I'd call it love. I've always had too many questions to fully trust anyone. After I got out of prison, Beth agreed to let me see my children. I was pleased that they still called me Dad, and I was part of their lives. I was even helping both of them go to college. Life was good. Business was thriving. Al and Joe were my best friends, and I saw them often. I was married to a beautiful woman. Things were better than ever. A couple of months ago, Abby started acting strange. I chalked it up to something women go through and didn't think much of it, though I kept my guard up. I had no reason to believe she'd cheat on me. I told her I was going on a fishing trip with Joe and Al like we'd done for the past 6 years. We wouldn't have our cell phones, and I told her if there was an emergency, she could always contact the Coast Guard. So far, that had never happened. The detective was talking to his tech team, hoping to trace the phone number from the call. The caller had been on the line long enough. "Have we located the phone?" the detective asked. "Yes, sir, but it's not a solid trace. The caller used a prepaid track phone, disposable. You can add minutes, but they're hard to trace. I tracked the number, but all it tells me is that it was bought at a Walmart. Could have been purchased anywhere. The tower that picked up the call is in downtown Cleveland." "Can we narrow it down?" the detective asked. "Not really, just within a 5-mile radius of downtown Cleveland." "Which isn't much, sir." "Send 2 officers to the motel and see if we can find out anything," the detective ordered. "Mrs. Bell, we'll need the name of the motel and your room number. Maybe someone saw something or a lobby camera picked up some footage. Also, check if Larry Bell's car is still in the parking lot." Abby gave the officer the info he asked for, including Larry's car make. She grew worried and asked about the ransom. I stepped in. "I'm not paying a dime. If you want him, you can cover the ransom yourself. Also, we should tell Cora since her husband's been hijacked." "No, we can't tell her," Abby said. "Actually, Mrs. Bell, we do need to speak with her," Detective Abel said. "It's her husband. She has the right to know." "Let me call her," I suggested. "She can come here and you can talk to her." "Fine, but get her here fast," the detective replied. I called Cora. "Hey, Cora, it's Terry. Can you come over? We need to talk." "Terry, is this about Larry? He was supposed to be in Pittsburgh, but he's not there. Do you know where he is?" Cora asked. "No, I don't. The detective needs to speak with you in person, so please come quickly," I said. 15 minutes later, Cora arrived. I met her at the door and brought her into the living room. "What's happening? Where's Larry? Is he okay?" she asked, worried. "Mrs. Bell," the detective started. "Just call me Cora. There are 2 Mrs. Bells here," she interrupted. "Where's Abby?" "She went to the bathroom," I said. "Cora, what did you mean when you said Larry wasn't in Pittsburgh?" the detective asked. "Do you know where he is? Why won't anyone tell me anything?" Cora trembled. I looked her in the eye. "Cora, Larry's been hijacked. They thought it was me but took him by mistake. He's alive. But they're asking for a ransom, Cora gasped. Oh my God, why would they snatch him or you? We need to know everything that's happened recently, the detective said. We spoke to Larry briefly, and we know he's alive. We're trying to find him. Cora looked uneasy, but agreed to help. I've been suspecting Larry of cheating. He went to Pittsburgh for a home show and said he was sharing a motel room to save money. He's done it before, but this time he seemed different. What made you think he was cheating? The detective asked. He's been distant, avoiding closeness and disappearing more often. I hired a private investigator to follow him. He left yesterday, but when he checked into the motel, the investigator found another man in his room. Larry wasn't there. A private investigator? I cut in. I needed to know. It cost me $1,000, but it was worth it if it proved anything. This morning, the investigator told me Larry never showed up, so he returned half the money. Just then, Abby came in, eyes red from crying. Cora rushed over to hug her, but Abby held her hands up. What's going on? Cora demanded. Why is my husband being held for ransom, and why is my best friend avoiding me? What aren't you telling me, Terry? You've never lied to me. I handed her a beer and told her to sit. I explained everything, including how they mistakenly took Larry instead of me. The reason they confused us, I added, is because my wife was having an affair with your husband. What? Cora shouted. Larry and Abby are having an affair? Turning to Abby, Cora snapped, You lied to me, comforted me, and now I find out you're the one cheating with him. Cora started crying, and I hugged her until she calmed down. Detective Abel then asked if she had more to add. He gambled a lot and lost money, Cora said. I don't know if that's why they wanted Terry. The detective turned to me. Do you have any enemies or know anyone who'd want to snatch you? I'm worth a lot on paper, but I can't get that kind of money quickly. My brother probably set this up. He's been sleeping with Abby and knows she has access to money. Abby shouted, He didn't do this. He loves me. And we were going to leave together. You're just jealous. You two-faced witch, Cora yelled. He's all yours. He even took money from my account. I'm done with him. Detective Abel intervened, trying to calm everyone. We still need to find Larry and the hijackers. Can either of you get the $300,000? Cora looked desperate. I only have a couple $100,000 left. He's still my husband until I divorce him. Don't spend another dime on him, I said. He's been using you. Let Abby deal with it. Abby snapped. That would wipe me out. You two don't care at all, do you? I muttered. He cheated on me with you. If you want to save him, do it yourself. Cora, I'll file for divorce before you on Monday. Bring me coffee, I joked. Cora stayed silent, her eyes filled with tears. Detective Abel sent 2 officers with Abby to get the ransom money, nearly all of her savings. When they returned, I stood up. I'm leaving, I said. You can't, the detective replied. Either arrest me or I'm going fishing. Call me if you need me for the funeral, I said coldly. Cora told them she couldn't stay because of Abby and would go to her own house. The detective arranged for a security guard to watch her home and promised to keep her updated. I turned to Abby. I'll stay at the cabin for a few more days. Once you get your lover back, I expect you to move out of my house. It's mine now. Detective Abel didn't know what to do with me. He walked me to my car, reminding me to stay alert since I was supposedly the original target. Thanks, but I doubt it, I said, driving off to the cabin. Later, Al and Joe came back with pizza and beer, and I told them what had happened. The next morning, I went fishing, waving at the Coast Guard, who I suspected were keeping an eye on me. We made sure to make it easy for them, blasting the foghorn when we passed by again. Around 3 a.m., a car pulled into my driveway as Al and Joe were getting out. Al in my car and Joe in his. Detective Abel and 2 other detectives, all in suits, stepped out. You don't look like you're here for camping or fishing, Abel said. Where are your friends headed? I explained. I was going to rent the cabin a few more days. They're picking up their families to stay. We all came in Joe's car and I lent mine to Al. So why are you here? Did you save my wonderful brother? Abel responded, We found your brother. He was shaken up, but he'll be fine. I don't think he was involved in the hijacking. I've known him all my life, and I'm sticking to my theory, I said. Want a Coke or something? A Coke would be nice. Can we look around the cabin? Abel asked. Sure, come in. It's messy from breakfast, but we'll clean before they get back with their wives, I joked. As they came in, Abel filled me in on what happened after I left. The detectives questioned the motel clerk, who said someone asked for the Bell's room, but didn't get a good look at him. Larry and Abby's room had a back exit by the pool. Larry was likely taken through that door. No one saw anything, but Larry's car was still in the parking lot, and most of his stuff, including his wallet, was left behind. minus cash and credit cards. The other detectives joined us, and I brought snacks. Abel continued. The hijackers called at 9 a.m. asking for the lawyer to hand over the ransom. The drop was in a dangerous part of town, so we couldn't let Abby go. So, my wife used her savings to pay the ransom for my brother, her lover? I asked. Yes, but we usually get the money back 80% of the time, Abel replied. So, Larry's safe, but you lost the money, I said. Yes, we lost track of the money. The hijackers had a well-planned operation. You mentioned they, so it was more than one person? According to your brother, after Abby left the motel, 2 masked men knocked him down, injected him with something, and he woke up in a dark, windowless room. He had water but no food and was lying on an old mattress. I know you think he set this up, but I can't see him doing this to himself, Abel explained. Detective Abel continued. Larry was told to bring a suitcase of money to an abandoned shopping center. The area looked like a war zone. There was an old green Chevy in a garage. Larry had to place the suitcase in the trunk, take the key, and leave. The hijackers said they had another key and would call with Larry's location after checking the money. When Larry protested, they threatened to eliminate him if the money wasn't delivered by 10 o'clock. We didn't like it, but we agreed and planned to watch the car. Jim and Bob hid nearby with binoculars, keeping an eye on the building and car. We waited until noon, but no one showed up. I was worried something went wrong, but the tracker showed the suitcase was still in the car. Then Mrs. Bell got a call with Larry's location. He was 2 houses down, locked in an old loan office or vault. The lock was welded shut, so Jim had to break it with a sledgehammer. We found Larry in his underwear, dehydrated and using a bucket for a toilet. He had no idea who hijacked him, just 2 masked men. They were angry when they realized they had mistaken him for you. I asked, what happened to Abby's money? Didn't you say the suitcase was still in the car? That's the crazy part, Abel said. When Bob opened the trunk, the suitcase was there, but the money was gone. The car had a false bottom, and the money was taken through a hole leading to the sewer. We found where the person exited, about 100 yards away, but no leads on who it was. Larry was taken to the hospital, dirty and shaken, but okay. I followed your wife there. Jim and Bob stayed at the scene but found no clues. We had the Chevy towed for inspection, but I doubt we'll find anything. Did you tell Cora? I asked. Yes, she thanked us, but told Larry she's filing for divorce. She was glad he was safe, but that was the end for her, Abel replied. The detectives stood up to leave, and I thanked them for the update. I wanted nothing to do with my brother. The best thing he could do was stay away from me. Before leaving, Abel asked if I had any idea who might have tried to snatch me. Detective, I run a scrap metal recycling center. I was with my best friends and my cousins were running the warehouse. Abby might have hired someone, but what would she gain? I bought her everything she wanted. My brother, though, he's always after money. My bet is still on him. Some time passed before Al and Joe arrived with their families. Everyone seemed happy, though things were a little awkward because they knew about Abby. She had never been close with any of them. I told the guys I was feeling a bit down and planned to stay at a motel for a couple of days. I encouraged them to enjoy the cabin and my boat, and I trusted them completely with everything I owned. They were true friends. I promised to be back in 2 days to dock the boat and close up the cabin. I told them to enjoy their vacation, and I'd see them at work on Monday. I figured some peace and quiet would do me good, giving me time to think about my next steps. I called Cora and invited her to dinner the next day, and she agreed. I met Cora the following day. She looked beautiful but sad, dressed in her usual business attire since she worked in real estate. We met at Red Lobster, arriving separately. Why did you want to have dinner, Terry? She asked. The last few days have been rough, and I thought we could both use a friend. So, did you see my a-hole brother yesterday? Yeah, I got there just after Abby left, she said. I can't believe a friend would do that to me. I never want to see her again. Larry tried to apologize, but I told him to go to hell. That was it for me. First he steals from me, then he cheats on me with Abby. I told him I'm filing for divorce on Monday, and if he fights it, I'll press theft charges for forging my name and taking money from my savings. God, I can't believe I ever married him. I feel like such an idiot for staying with him, she added. He's always been a smooth talker. I hoped he'd changed when he married you, but clearly he hasn't. I'm seeing a lawyer on Monday too. If you want to come with me, that's fine, I said. She smiled. Your brother may be a talker, but you've always been a kind man, willing to help anyone. Larry has always been jealous of you, but you probably knew that already. What did he say about the hijacking? Did he admit to setting it up? I asked. Cora chuckled. He claimed he had nothing to do with it. He said they were after you but didn't know why. They were furious when they realized they had the wrong bell. I'm still confused about all of this. Is there something you're not telling me? I asked. Let's leave it at that for now, she replied. Talking about Larry makes me sick. How about we go see a lawyer together? Maybe grab lunch afterward? I said softly. Cora, I've always cared about you. It's a shame I picked the wrong brother, but I didn't know you then. We each have to deal with our divorces now. Some might even think we faked the hijacking to be together, she laughed. But that doesn't mean we can't have dinner or lunch once in a while. I loved spending time with her. She was kind, genuine, and easy to talk to. I had thought about her many times, but never admitted my feelings. We were both married and respected our vows. After the divorces, I hoped things would change. When I returned to the cabin on Sunday, Al and Joe, or maybe their wives, had already cleaned up. They thanked me repeatedly for letting them use the boat. I told them they could use it any time. The wives even gave me hugs. Al and Joe had already returned the boat, tied it up, and locked everything. I said goodbye to Joe and his family, telling them I'd see them tomorrow, though I'd be late because I had to stop by the lawyer's office. I gave Al and his family a ride home since they didn't have a car with them. On Sunday evening, I called Abby from the motel and told her, I hope you're packing because I'll be home Monday after work and you'd better be gone or you'll regret it. It was a threat, but I didn't care. I wasn't sure I'd actually do anything, but I was definitely going to throw her out. She wanted to talk about money and divorce. I told her, it's all in the prenup. You'll get what you came in with and the house, and almost everything in it stays with me. When she said most of her money was gone because she gave it to Larry, I replied, you can thank my brother for that. Talk to him. Maybe he can return some of the money. She got angry. You're a horrible, pathetic person. You would let your brother die. I cut her off. I didn't do anything. If he hadn't been fooling around with my wife, I might have helped him. Anyway, I'm seeing a lawyer on Monday. You'll be served with divorce papers later this week. I suggest you sign them. After I returned from the lawyer's office on Monday, I got a call from Cora at work. Larry stopped by my office to pick up his things from the house. He had a small trailer, and I told him he better take only what belonged to him. He tried to apologize again, but I told him to just leave. I'll be mailing the divorce papers to his company's office in Youngstown. As he was leaving, she continued, I saw Abby in a car following Larry. I think she rented a truck. My idiot brother helped her move her stuff. Cora told me she had scared Larry by telling him, I had dinner with Terry on Saturday, and he said if he ever saw you again, you'd be a dead man. I never said that, but Cora told me it scared the hell out of Larry, she added. Cora told me she also informed Detective Abel that she had canceled all of Larry's credit cards, both those in his name and the ones they shared. She was done paying his bills and mentioned that Abel was keeping an eye out for any activity on the stolen cards. The case wouldn't be closed until the hijackers were caught and hopefully the money recovered. Since Larry had been found, the case had been put on the back burner. Work slowly returned to normal. Cora and I started having dinner at least twice a week. We both filed for divorce, and the lawyers said it would take about 90 days. We were both surprised that neither Abby nor Larry contested the divorce. Contesting would have been pointless since we both had prenuptial agreements. Over the next month, Cora and I grew closer. She confided in me about things she hadn't shared before. A few months earlier, Larry had traveled to Las Vegas and forged her name to withdraw over $100,000. She only found out when she saw a bank statement, right as Larry was supposed to be on a 2-day trip to Pittsburgh. At first, she just wanted to confront him. But then she wanted to know why he had done it. She suspected the money went to cover gambling debts and wondered if he had another woman. Cora asked me to check on Abby and Larry's schedules, and it turned out they'd both been out of town that weekend. Abby had gone to Iowa to visit her sister. I was more annoyed than ever and told Cora that I needed some payback. But I knew I had to wait. Too little time had passed since the hijacking. Later, we found out that Abby and Larry were living together just outside Cleveland. They were renting an apartment, still working, but we didn't know if they were happy. Cora suggested I leave it alone. It's over, she said. Cora mentioned that Larry thought I was a fool for going to jail to protect my father. There's no way he would have done that, she said. Cora told me she thought it was a beautiful and heroic act to protect my sick father. I realized I was falling in love with her. I loved being around her, and she made me feel at home. I asked, Cora, when our divorces are final, would you marry me? We hadn't even made love yet, but I meant it. I confessed. Terry, are you sure you want to do this? I'm probably not the best lover considering my husband wants another woman, she replied, but she smiled and didn't say no. Our divorces will be finalized next month, I said. Let's celebrate, spend the night together, and then you can decide. I already know how I feel, I told her. I had no doubt about my feelings. Being around her made me happy. A month later, we both received our divorce papers in the same week. Cora said she wanted to get away for the weekend with me. I decided to take her to Pittsburgh and booked us a stay at the Sheraton Inn, a great spot to explore the city. We left on Friday, driving through Youngstown, crossing the Ohio River into West Virginia, and then reaching Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I stopped in Youngstown for gas and used my credit card. Then I made a large deposit in the overnight box at Chase Bank, telling Cora, I meant to deposit this before leaving, but since it's the same bank, I'll drop it off here. It's too much money to carry around. We had dinner at the Sheraton, and it was wonderful to be with her. After dinner and a few drinks, we went up to the room and made love. The next morning, we explored the city, visiting the Carnegie Institute, a museum. Later, we decided to catch a baseball game. We weren't Pirates fans, being from Cleveland, but we acted like kids and had a blast. We went out for dinner again, then returned to the hotel for cocktails and some dancing. It was just nice being together. I couldn't believe my brother had cheated on a woman like Cora. She was beautiful, fun, wonderful, and a great lover, everything I could want in a girlfriend or wife. The next day, we headed back to Cleveland, passing through Steubenville and a few small Amish towns. We stopped to do some shopping and sightseeing along the way. I dropped Cora off at her house and told her I'd like to see her Monday after work. On Monday, she cooked us dinner. She was an amazing cook, too. After we finished eating, there was a knock at the door. Cora answered it. It was Detective Abel. Mrs. Bell, may I come in? I have a few questions for you. Of course, come in, she said. Terry, Detective Abel is here, she called. I walked into the room, and Abel looked a little surprised to see me. Before you say anything, I started. Cora and I have been seeing each other. This only started after we both found out about our exes cheating. You're both adults. What you do is your business, Abel said. I have a few questions about the credit cards you canceled that were stolen. Do you still have a list? Yes, it's in the desk. I'll get it, Cora replied. She handed the list to Detective Abel. What's this about? Cora asked. I noticed you canceled the Chase card you both used. Is that right? Yes, why? She asked. Your husband had another Chase card he used last Friday at a gas station in Youngstown. Larry was at his corporate office in Youngstown on Friday. He said he didn't use that card and that it was stolen. I only canceled the cards I had duplicates of. I didn't know he had another Chase card, Cora explained. Was my name on that card? No, Abel said. He claimed it was his alone. He ordered a new card but hadn't used it. So, what do you want from me? I just need to confirm the cards you canceled. That's all you can do, Cora said. It sounds like Larry's problem, not mine. You're right, Abel agreed. But I needed to check. That card wasn't just used for gas. It was also used for an overnight deposit. Someone put $100,000 into an account that already had $75,000. What? I asked, shocked. Someone put $100,000 into Larry's savings account? Who else could have done that but Larry himself? Did you ask him? Yes, Abel replied. He didn't have much to say. Your ex-wife was there demanding to know where the money came from and why he didn't tell her about the $75,000. Larry just clammed up and refused to answer. You may be right about your brother, Mr. Bell, Abel continued, but we can't prove anything. We're just tracking the stolen cards. Larry claimed this card wasn't stolen, but he was uncertain when he gave me the list. After Abel left, Cora looked at me, her eyes filled with questions. I knew she wanted to talk, so I decided to be straightforward. Cora, are you going to marry me? I asked. Terry, I care about you. I really do, she said softly. But I have one big problem. What's that? I asked. I'm sure we can work through it. It's about the hijacking, Cora said. I have a feeling you know more than you've told me. If we get married, I need to be able to trust you. I've been married twice, and both my husbands lied to me, not just about cheating. I don't want that again. I smiled, though I felt a pang of guilt. Why do you think I know more? Terry, we were in Youngstown on Friday, she said calmly. You got gas and stopped at Chase Bank to make a deposit. I know you well enough to tell when you're hiding something. Did you find out about Abby and Larry and stage this hijacking so I'd see what kind of man Larry really is? I hesitated, but I knew I owed her the truth. So, what do you want to know? if I knew about it, if I was involved. I just want the truth, she said. I need to be able to trust you, and you can trust me. You made that deposit knowing I'd question it. You were sending me a message, weren't you? It was a big step for me, a step toward trust that I rarely took. Aside from Al and Joe, I hadn't fully trusted anyone else. But Cora was right. If we were going to be together, we needed to trust each other completely. All right, I said, deciding to come clean. I'll tell you everything. One of my best clients thought he saw me in Las Vegas. He said he approached a guy who looked like my twin, hugging a woman as if she were his mistress. My client greeted him with, "How the hell are you doing, you stupid son of a witch?" The guy got mad and told him to back off. That's when my client realized it wasn't me. I continued. I showed him a picture of Abby and asked if that was the woman he saw. He said yes, and I told him it was my twin brother and his wife. He then said, "Damn, he was all over her like newlyweds." I played along, but I knew the truth. After that, I called Abby's sister and found out she hadn't been to Las Vegas. So I knew Abby went with Larry, and I figured you paid for the trip. I had paid for her airfare, thinking she was going to her sister's. Cora's expression tightened as I went on. I checked Abby's savings, and she hadn't withdrawn any money for the trip. That's when I decided to get even. I asked a few close friends for help. The rest is history. You would have let him die? Cora asked, her voice trembling. Of course not, I said. But I wanted him to suffer. I can't stand him, but he's still my brother. I just hoped you wouldn't help bail him out. I was surprised Abby gave the money, but I'm sure she thought she'd get it back once the hijackers were caught. Why did you give Larry money on Friday? She asked, still processing. I got rid of all his cards except for the one in his name after you mentioned you'd canceled the rest. I checked the balance. It was $75,000, likely what he took from you. I used it to buy gas so Detective Abel would know the card had been used. Then I deposited the money into his account. Larry's so greedy he'd never admit someone else put that money there, and I knew it would create doubt between him and Abby. She'll always wonder if it's her money. I laughed bitterly. There's no way he can explain that kind of cash. Cora stared at me, her expression unreadable. What did you do with the rest of the money? I didn't need any of it. I bought stock in my company for the two friends who helped me. $50,000 each. They now own about 4% of the company. I told them to hold on to it for now. They're happy to have a stake in the business. The remaining $100,000 is for you, the money Larry stole. I thought you could put it in the real estate account. Cora didn't know what to say. I had essentially hijacked her husband for her benefit, told her the truth, and didn't take any money for myself. She knew I did it to get back at both Abby and Larry, but I had also helped her. Well, that's everything, I said. It's up to you whether you trust me. I love you, Cora, and I want you in my life, and I promise not to lie to you. Cora looked at me for a long time, then kissed me softly. She took my hand, led me to the bedroom, and we made love. We decided to rent a cabin and have a small private wedding. It was a beautiful setting by the lake, with nature's calm all around us. Al, Joe, their families, and the rest of my staff were there. Cora's parents attended, and I finally met her sister and a few other relatives. Some of her real estate employees were also there. It was too cold to swim, but everyone enjoyed a boat ride, and we all appreciated the peaceful surroundings. No one mentioned Abby or Larry, and nothing was said about the hijacking, but I saw Cora hugging Al and Joe, realizing who my true friends were. The wedding was filled with food, music, and the warmth of family and friends. Cora's parents were surprised by how much I looked like Larry, but she quickly explained that he was my twin. After everyone left, Cora and I took a moonlit boat ride, just the two of us. It was peaceful, romantic, and the perfect way to begin our new life together. We spent 4 days at the cabin, fishing and simply enjoying each other's company. There were no distractions or drama, and it felt like we were finally free from the complications of the past. Cora and I had a business arrangement for our future. I owned my parts warehouse, and she owned her real estate business. Everything else we shared. We decided to sell both our houses and bought a condo together for a fresh start. It was wonderful coming home to her. Sometimes we went out for dinner, other times we stayed in. Cora bonded quickly with Al and Joe's wives, who became her best friends. Since Cora couldn't have children, we often watched their kids. They started calling us Aunt Cora and Uncle Terry, and it felt like we had built a new family around us. Eventually, we even considered adoption. From what we've heard, Larry and Abby aren't together anymore. Larry apparently moved out of state, which suited me fine. Cora mentioned seeing Abby a few times during business trips. She's gained weight and is seeing someone at her insurance firm, Cora said, but they never spoke. Abby would just shake her head whenever she saw Cora. We never heard back from Detective Abel, so I assumed the hijacking case is closed. I didn't care anymore. I had moved on. Cora and I were happy, and nothing else mattered. Our business was thriving, and the friends who helped with the hijacking were now part owners of the company, strengthening our bond. Life was good. Cora and I made a great team, both in life and in business. One day, as we sat in our condo, Cora looked at me and asked, "Terry, do you ever wonder what might have happened if things had gone differently with Larry, Abby, everything?" I paused for a moment. Sometimes, I admitted. But then I remember that everything led us to this moment, and I wouldn't change a thing. She smiled, took my hand, and said, "Me neither." We leaned back, watching the sunset over the city, knowing we had overcome life's challenges together. And that was all that really mattered.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
It always seemed like getting to the top took longer than it should. It was hard to tell if the guys were looking forward to a night off or just annoyed about losing 2 hours of work. 2 hours into a 12-hour shift, the methane alarm went off. I still had the 4 sticks and their caps tucked in the yellow bag slung over my shoulder. There wouldn't be any blasting tonight, which meant I was stuck lugging the bag around again. The magazine, where the dynamite was kept locked up, only stayed open long enough for the Dogwatch crew to check out their daily supply. Once again, I'd be taking the yellow satchel home with me. It was a hassle, sure, but the extra pay made up for it. I grabbed my Carhartt from the locker and headed out. Gray clouds were rolling in over the eastern mountains, and by the time I crossed the parking lot, Randy had the truck warmed up and ready to go. "Damn it, Caleb. Why can't you just get yourself an old beater so you'd at least have something to drive?" "You know I can't afford it," I said. "Just keeping up with the payments on Linda's Camaro has me scraping by. Feeding 3 kids and dealing with a high-maintenance wife isn't cheap." "You're the most whipped guy I know," Randy shot back. "She's been running your life since grade school." He wasn't wrong. Linda had latched onto me when we were kids. She was bossy and demanding, but also the prettiest girl in the county. I put up with her antics just to be close to her. Somewhere along the way, though, things got out of hand. We were barely out of the lot when the rain started coming down steady. A dark, cold rain that looked like it would last all night. The only good thing about the rain, as far as I was concerned, was that it washed away the coal dust that clung to everything. Farmers didn't see it that way, of course. The wipers on Randy's old F-100 slapped rhythmically against the windshield, leaving streaks in their wake. The crack on the passenger side, like always, was dripping water onto the dash. Great. Just what I needed, a beat-up old truck of my own. It was only a 15-minute drive to the trailer park, but the place turned into a swamp every time it rained. You'd think they'd lay down some gravel now and then, but that was wishful thinking. All we needed was a down payment to get out of there, but every time I managed to save a little, Linda found something else to spend it on. "I'll pick you up tomorrow, same time," Randy said as we pulled up. "Thanks, Randy." We'd grown up together, neither of us ever planning to end up in the mines, but here we were. He'd wanted to join the Air Force, but they wouldn't take him without a high school diploma. I'd planned to be a certified auto mechanic, but that dream didn't pan out either. "Hey, Caleb, where's the Camaro?" Randy asked. The bright yellow car was hard to miss, except when it wasn't there. I just shrugged and headed toward the double-wide as Randy drove off. Inside, my 3 boys were sitting cross-legged on the floor, glued to the TV. "Where's your mother?" I asked. Jason, my 8-year-old, glanced up at me and shrugged. "When did she leave?" "About 10 minutes after you left for work," Jason said, barely glancing away from the TV. I could tell I was interfering with their cartoon-watching marathon. What was she wearing? Her red dress. That told me plenty. Linda didn't put on that dress for a grocery run. It was low-cut, short, and clung to her in all the right places. I couldn't deny she looked incredible in it, but I knew better than to think she was just out running errands. I slid my crib can into the refrigerator. It would still be good tomorrow, and turned back to Jason. "Did your mom feed you before she left?" Jason, the only one paying me any attention, shook his head. "No, I made dinner. What did you eat?" "Cocoa Puffs." The 3 of them were glued to the TV, barely acknowledging me. I could see that my questions were an unwelcome interruption. Jason might have been resourceful, but at 8, he wasn't old enough to be watching himself, let alone his brothers. Terry was 6, and Dylan, at nearly 3, still needed plenty of help. "Jason," I said, When you get a chance, put some clean pants on Dylan. Looks like he peed himself again. I didn't understand why Dylan wasn't potty trained yet, but Linda had always been the type to let the kids figure things out for themselves, or not. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and took a quick leak. Outside, the rain was pounding harder than ever, but I felt a growing urge to go find Linda. Where was she tonight? Things had started going sideways about 4 years ago. That was when Linda began going out with her friend, Betty Ann. At first, it was just once a week, and I stayed home with the boys. She slowed down a bit when she was pregnant with Dylan, but once he was born, the outings picked up again. When I switched to the night shift at the mine, Linda hired sitters to watch the kids while she went out. Then, about 6 months ago, she stopped bothering with sitters altogether. Randy was right about one thing. I let Linda run the show. From the beginning of our relationship, she was the one calling the shots. She decided where we went, what we did, and how we lived. I never had much of a say in anything. Linda was so exciting, so magnetic, that I'd put up with almost anything just to keep her happy. That was my problem. I prioritized her happiness over everything else. If I'm being honest, the best part of our relationship was the sex. I had more of it and better than any guy I knew. But that wasn't enough to make up for everything else. I did try, at least once, to put my foot down about her going out all the time, but it was a disaster. Linda's dad was a deputy sheriff when we got married, and not long after, he was elected county sheriff. From the start, he didn't like me and made it clear he thought I wasn't good enough for his only daughter. Looking back, I realized he was right. I couldn't give Linda the kind of life she wanted. One night, before she got pregnant with Dylan, I went to a honky-tonk to drag her home. I didn't go quietly about it either. Her father showed up in less than 10 minutes, furious. He was a big man with a temper to match. In front of a packed bar, he slammed me against the wall and warned me that if I ever laid a hand on his daughter, he'd beat the living hell out of me. Linda managed to calm him down, and she did leave with me that night. But after that, I gave up trying to confront her about her nights out. Once Dylan was born, it felt like she kept going out just to spite me. There's a quote I've heard: all men live lives of quiet desperation. I don't know who said it, but they were onto something. I looked at my 3 boys sprawled on the floor and felt something shift inside me. I didn't want to keep living like this. Outside, the rain still came down in heavy sheets. I grabbed the phone and called my mother. Mama, it's Caleb. I need you to do me a favor. Mama and I had always been close, except when it came to Linda. She never warmed to my wife. Linda was smart and beautiful, but Mama always said she was sneaky and couldn't be trusted. Looks like she was right. Everyone was right about Linda, except me. Why aren't you at work, boy? How do you expect to feed those 3 young uns if you're taking time off? I didn't take off. The mine shut down because of the bottom gas again. I need you and Dad to come over and pick up the kids. I've got to go out for a while, and I don't want to leave them here alone. Where's that wife of yours? She asked, her tone sharp. I'm not sure. There was a long pause on the other end of the line before she spoke again. You do what you have to do, son. You know your daddy, and I will always back you up. Thanks, Mama. Sometimes, it was good to have family. Linda had a cell phone, but I decided not to call her. I already knew it wouldn't do any good. The boys were still glued to the television as I slipped on my Carhartt and grabbed the yellow satchel. I pulled an old army surplus poncho over my head, bracing myself for the cold rain outside. They didn't even glance my way as I stepped out the door. Walking through the mud, I couldn't help but wish I had that beat-up truck Randy teased me about earlier. At least it'd get me out of here faster. It was less than half a mile from the trailer park to Main Street, but it felt like a lot longer in the pouring rain. Once I hit the asphalt, walking got a little easier, though the rain quickly wore me down. The poncho kept my upper body mostly dry, but it only reached my knees, and my Levi's were soaked within 10 minutes. For some reason, my left sock was already wet, a reminder that I needed to waterproof my boots again whenever I found the time. The ponchos had kept the rain off my head, but the wind blew it straight into my face. Every few minutes, I had to wipe my eyes just to see where I was going. Most of the bars were on the far side of town, naturally. This was an odd little place, split by the main street. On one side of the road ran the railroad tracks, and on the other were all the storefronts. Most of the stores were closed now, those that hadn't gone out of business already. The streetlights worked fine, though, and I could see the raindrops glistening as they fell past the glowing bulbs. A couple of cars slowed down to offer me a ride, but I waved them on. I wasn't in the mood for company or explanations. The south end of town stopped just short of the interstate. The last place still open there was Joe's Truck Stop. It used to be Joe's coffee shop before the interstate came through. They still served solid meals and hot coffee, and the truckers liked it for the cheap diesel, always a few cents less than the bigger stops. Between where I was and Joe's, there were at least a dozen bars and half as many motels. I figured Linda wouldn't want to drive too far on a night like this, so I had a decent chance of spotting her car somewhere along the way. All I needed to do was find that yellow Camaro. Too bad I couldn't afford a taxi. It would have made this miserable search a whole lot quicker. The rain just wouldn't let up. The thunder seemed to be fading, but the downpour persisted. The first 3 bars I checked were small, depressing places where mostly older folks nursed the same glass for hours. Not the kind of spot Linda would typically go, but I figured I might as well check them. I stood outside, peering through the windows. The real action was further down the road, where the neon lights flickered in the damp air. By now, my left foot was thoroughly soaked and starting to feel cold. I kept moving, scanning the parked cars carefully. Everything seemed to blend into shades of gray until I got within about 100 feet. I guess it was just another trick of the rain, something I hadn't noticed before. The roundabout was always the liveliest place in town. When Linda and I went out, we always ended up there. After several more dead ends, I finally made it. The place was big enough that I couldn't avoid walking in. I stood at the end of the bar, drenched and looking like a sorry mess. Damn, Caleb. You look like hell. What the hell are you doing out here on a night like this? Walt, the bartender and owner of the roundabout, came over with a grin and handed me a dry bar towel. Stay put, Caleb. I don't want to have to clean up after you, too. I wiped my face with the towel and ran it through my hair. Even with the hood of the poncho pulled up, my hair was drenched. When I handed the towel back to Walt, he gave me a short drink in exchange. I glanced around the room, taking in the crowd. Among the sea of people, I spotted Betty Ann. She was with 2 guys, but clearly seemed alone. She left about 20 minutes ago, Caleb, Walt said. I passed him the empty glass, giving him a nod to show I heard and understood. She was with Howard Garrett. He usually parks in the rear lot at the Whispering Pines, he added. I pulled the poncho hood back over my head, nodded again to Walt, and stepped out into the night. The rain had slowed, though it still lingered. The lightning was far off to the west, and the thunder had almost faded. It was only about a 10-minute walk to the Whispering Pines. My left foot was still bothering me, so I found myself shaking it every 100 feet or so. When I arrived, the yellow Camaro was parked next to Howard's large dual-wheel pickup. The back parking lot was dark. Guess that was no accident. I wasn't there for long, about 5 minutes. I was good at my job and took pride in my work. The walk back to the roundabout was quicker, as the rain had reduced to a light drizzle. I slipped off the poncho before heading back inside. It was clear that Walt didn't know how to approach me or what to say. He was a good guy, and I could tell he didn't want to be the one delivering bad news. He had no clue what I was up to, and that was fine with me. I offered him a small smile to reassure him, trying to ease the tension, and then asked him to have the waitress bring Betty Ann over. Betty Ann's voice dripped with sarcasm as she approached. What's up, Caleb? Why the hell aren't you at work? It took everything I had not to lash out. The urge to slap her was almost overwhelming. I kept my cool, instead asking, where is she, Betty Ann? Where the hell is Linda? And don't feed me any bullshit. She shot back, well, I guess she's home with your kids. Isn't that where she's supposed to be? Maybe you should get your butt back there and handle your business. Walt, sensing the tension, slid a beer toward me, probably trying to diffuse the situation. I took a long drink, feeling the cold liquid settle in my stomach, then leaned in toward Betty Ann. I'm going to find her, I said, my voice low but steady. And I'm going to kill her and any man she's with. Do you understand? The cocky arrogance in Betty Ann's demeanor vanished immediately. She seemed genuinely taken aback, and that impressed me. My words were far from my usual self, but something about this moment made me break from my usual calm. Walt, too, looked stunned, but I noticed a small smile tugging at the corner of his lips. I asked if you understand. I repeated, my tone firmer. Betty Ann nodded, but the words didn't come. She was usually quick with her comebacks, but not this time. As she walked back to her table, she glanced at me twice, her eyes wide. I handed Walt the empty glass, and he surprised me by offering his hand to shake before I left. That was something he'd never done before. Across the room, Betty Ann was already on her phone, talking rapidly. I grabbed the poncho from outside the door and tossed it, along with the empty yellow bag, into the dumpster by the bar. I wasn't trying to cover my tracks. I had no intention of sticking around. The mine would likely catch hell for the missing dynamite, but I wasn't going back there, either. I figured I had about 10 minutes to reach the truck stop if I hurried. Joe's was as busy as usual. The asphalt was still slick from the rain, but thankfully, it had stopped. I had to talk to 3 truck drivers before one finally agreed to give me a ride. Houston sounded good. Just as we hit the ramp to the interstate, there was a loud explosion about a quarter of a mile away. We saw the orange fireball and black smoke rise up, even in the dark. My driver muttered something, but I didn't catch it. He didn't notice the smile on my face as I stared out the window. I had no trouble landing a job at the Pasta de Conchos mine near Palau. They were glad to get a certified shot fired after losing several men. Apparently, my credentials helped them meet some insurance requirements. As for the yellow Camaro, it vanished along with my wife. They held a memorial service, but there was no casket. Howard was blown across the parking lot by the blast, ending up splattered on the side of a dumpster. I felt bad for Howard, but at least he had a funeral. I don't think I'll be able to go back home, considering there's no statute of limitations for what I've done. Since blasting is a federal offense, the ATF is also looking for me. My mom and dad are bringing the boys down this summer. At least I don't have to wonder anymore. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
Welcome to Lost Relation Chronicles.
This was a nice restaurant. I had always liked it. Enjoyed the atmosphere, the food, and the acoustics. So many restaurants these days go for that unfinished ceiling look which kills the acoustics and magnifies and bounces the noise levels to the point where you can't really enjoy a relaxing dinner conversation. This was an old house that had been converted into an upscale steakhouse. The individual rooms had been left intact such that there are 7 separate dining areas on 2 levels, each hosting about 6 tables, nicely spaced to provide a nice degree of intimacy. It was a great place for a romantic dinner. Unfortunately, tonight I was not enjoying a romantic dinner. I was having dinner with my wife, Kathy. She and I were seated at a table in one of the lower-level dining rooms and she was fidgeting, rarely looking at me, nervous and frightened, but I could also see determination. I had barely spoken a word since arriving here, and only what had been necessary to be seated and order drinks. As I perused the menu trying to decide between the blackberry fillet or the beef tenderloin tornadoes in a bordelaise sauce, I took a pull on my single malt on the rocks and regarded my wife. She was still a physically beautiful woman, smart, successful, and until recently a woman who I would have died for. But I had no passion left for her anymore. She wasn't aware of the change in my attitude, but I would ruin her plans for this evening with that tidbit of news among others. Ben? That's me, Ben Jones. 49 years old and a reasonably successful software account executive married 28 years to the stranger now seated opposite me. Yes, Kathy? I sighed quietly. I wanted to talk with you about something. Well, that will make a pleasant change, Kathy. She eyed me with a little perturbation, twisting her mouth in annoyance. I hoped my attitude would resolve her nerves and get her to finally spit out what I knew she wanted. Yes, well, thank you for your sarcasm. Ben, it has always endeared me to you. Thank you, Kathy, but I wasn't being sarcastic in that instance. I didn't elaborate. I held her stare, taking another pull on my scotch until she looked off to the left and watched our waiter approaching. I didn't wait for the lady to order first as I normally would have. Instead, as he gained the table, I handed him my menu and ordered the blackberry fillet with the Spanish rice. Kathy, discomfited by my obvious disregard for gentility, scanned her menu quickly before deciding on a salad. Who orders a salad at an award-winning steakhouse? With the waiter gone, Kathy again fixed me with her gaze. Ben, I have been thinking a lot lately. About you, about me, well, about us, and I wanted to discuss my thoughts with you. There is, by God's grace, an immeasurable difference between late and too late. I replied. Excuse me? Kathy inquired. A day late and $1 short? I sighed. You were always willing to holler down the rain, Kathy. Holler away. You are being less than helpful, Ben. I am serious. What did you want to talk about, Kathy? Well, there's really no easy way to say this. I slowly rotated my glass, whisking the condensation up and away with my thumb and finger on either side of the glass as I turned it. Just say what's on your mind. Well, I want to try a period of separation, she gushed out. Nothing permanent, Ben. Just an opportunity for me to explore my thoughts further. I'll get an apart.
No.
She suddenly looked directly at me, shocked, a wisp of her blonde hair falling in her face as she jerked her head up too quickly for it to remain contained. Excuse me? What do you mean, no? A separation would be good for us. It would help me fall back in love with you and... Kathy, I don't want you to fall back in love with me. I smiled. Not a smile of love or triumph or of condescension, but an endearing smile. A smile you might use to humor a child arguing passionately for another 10 minutes of games before bed. I have no patience for your trying to justify your bad behavior, Kathy. You want a separation, so you can explore things with my replacement. So, which came first? The falling out of love with me, or the permission you gave yourself to cast about for my replacement? What the hell are you talking about, Ben? I have not replaced you and I am not looking to replace you. You'd have to agree that our marriage has been stale, and I think some time apart would help us to determine how we fix that and get back to where we were. Yes, Kathy, our marriage is stale. Actually, it is past stale, and I alone have tried for the past 2 years to try to change that. Unfortunately for us, there was only one person working on this marriage until recently, and now there are 3. Of course, those 3 have been working at cross purposes. I raised my hand to forestall the objection I saw coming. You have replaced me, Kathy. You have cheated on me, and now you want me to accept an arrangement where you can explore that relationship further. You want to separate to explore your relationship with Roger, not your relationship with me. I will not allow that to happen, Kathy. She was angry now. Twisting her napkin in her hands and glaring at me, she quietly hissed, "You're wrong. I have not cheated on you with Roger, and he is not your replacement. What you mean to say, Kathy, is that you haven't been with Roger physically, but you've certainly been unfaithful to me with him, and you have replaced me with him." She looked uncomfortable. "Keep your voice down, Ben. There is no need to broadcast our issues." "Why, Kathy, but you already have. Tell me, who have you spoken to about this idea of separation besides me?" She was looking very uncomfortable now. "Well, I may have had a discussion or 2 with Roger about it, and just then our meals arrived. And so you're discussing our marital issues with Roger before you discuss them with me is not cheating me? Arriving at a course of action for our marriage with Roger and then telling, not asking, telling me about your decision is not cheating me? Roger has had more input into my marriage than I have." She was silent, seething as our dishes were placed in front of us. I winked at the young female server who looked a little uncomfortable herself. Again, Kathy hissed at me, "You make it sound so sordid, Ben. Roger is a friend, a willing listener and sounding board who has been nothing but kind, considerate, and helpful. He is someone I can count on. He understands me, appreciates me, and doesn't judge me." Our waiter arrived to check on our well-being. "It is sordid, Kathy. You are an adulteress, you are insulting my intelligence, our marriage and our past, and you have ruined our future. Roger is slicker than a boiled onion, and he needs peeling. I would have thought you would have cheated up, not down." "Yes, thank you, our meal looks wonderful," I chirped to our waiter as he patiently waited for me to cut my fillet and agree that it had been cooked as I had requested. "I don't appreciate what you're doing, Ben." Kathy obviously felt ill at ease discussing this so openly. "I am not a cheater. I have not cheated, and you are wrong about Roger. As a matter of fact, I think you'd really like him. He's a lot like you in so many ways, Ben." "Well, I am glad that in your mind Roger and I are interchangeable, Kathy. You'll never know the amount of comfort I get from that." I think you've lost your mind, and for the record, in all of the ways that matter, Roger and I are nothing alike. I don't insinuate myself in other people's marriages in order to sabotage them. I don't screw other men's wives, and I certainly won't play his games. You have cheated on me, Kathy. You go to Roger with your problems and triumphs. You discuss our personal lives with him, seek his advice, company, and companionship. All things you have stopped sharing with me. You are a 304 who hasn't spread her legs yet, and you make me sick." I glared at her shocked expression and took a bite of my fillet and chewed it appreciatively, put my fork down and took a sip of water. I looked up at Kathy, who was regarding me thoughtfully. "Clearly this news has hurt you, Ben. I didn't intend to hurt you." "Really? God damn it. Kathy, you are one bubble off plum. You knew full well that cheating on me would hurt me, which is why you kept it a secret. You didn't intend to hurt me? Well, you didn't intentionally try to keep me from harm either." I pushed my plate aside, pulled out my wallet, and dropped $200 on the table. As I rose from the table, I downed the rest of my scotch, looked down at Kathy, and said, "I will not allow a separation, Kathy. I have filed for divorce." We did divorce. Kathy fought it hard, requesting counseling in ridiculous terms. She refused to sign the divorce papers or bargain in good faith, demanding that I meet with her to discuss our marriage. I refused. I told her I would speak with her after the divorce was final and not a second before. I did want to avoid a contentious split so we could be civil around our kids and grandkids, but I wanted a divorce, and eventually I got it. We split everything right down the middle, and I walked away. Kathy sent me a nasty note demanding to know why I had just given up on our marriage and hadn't fought for her. How do you respond to that level of crazy? In response, I sent her a picture of her with Roger, capturing the betrayal plainly. She had kindly sent me the picture 3 days after I walked out of the restaurant. She hadn't yet screwed Roger when we had our dinner date. It took 2 whole days after our date. What restraint they had. I never heard back from her on that subject. I don't date much. I'm no Casanova, and as long as I get my ashes hauled every now and again, I prefer my own company or the company of my kids, grandkids, and close friends. My kids sided with Kathy initially. They didn't understand what it was that Kathy did that was so wrong. I felt like I had failed as a father. I explained my position to them, asking them that if their spouse had clearly stopped loving them and started a relationship with someone else, would they be accepting? Would they accept a separation so their errant spouse could explore the adulterous relationship without the guilt or inconvenience a spouse was likely to provide? Well, I couldn't. I wouldn't. Kathy had refused any serious attempt at trying to resolve our marital issues, and rather than discuss them with me, she found someone else to confide in. Someone else to plot the future of my marriage with, and that was simply unacceptable. In the end, my kids understood, and our relationship improved while their relationship with their mother soured slightly. Kathy and I are both less happy and happier simultaneously. We're less happy because we're alone, but we're more happy because we managed to navigate a way forward independently. But move forward we did. Kathy remarried and divorced again within 2 years of our divorce. No, she and Roger didn't marry, and in fact never slept together other than that one time. I don't know or care why. I never remarried. I took an early retirement and moved to the country where I remain to this day. I am happy not to have to burn energy on a woman that doesn't deserve or want it, but I do miss the woman I married and what I thought we might share together. I mourned the loss of that as I celebrated escaping a love-starved marriage to a woman who I no longer knew, respected, or loved. We had many good years, but they fizzled and Kathy ultimately checked out. I was the one who pulled the plug on our marriage, but she was the one who shot it. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
I was born in a small town. After finishing university, I moved to city for work. At the moment, I'm dealing with a huge dilemma, which has led me to share my story. I'm sure many of you might think I'm insane or criticize me for my decisions. I graduated from a major that has a high employment rate and even obtained a national certification. I'm a healthy man. Leaving my parents and experiencing the thrill of living alone was new but exciting. Living in a city filled with young, beautiful women was a fresh experience. At my company, we had college students working part-time, assisting with simple administrative tasks. That's how I met a female college student who was working part-time at my company. My girlfriend was 22 years old. She was truly bright, kind, and naturally beautiful. Despite her young age, she possessed a serious and calm demeanor. After about 3 months of dating, she suggested introducing me to her family. My family is rather conservative, and my parents always told me to only bring home someone I intended to marry. Because of this, I was somewhat reluctant to visit her family. However, she noticed my hesitation and reassured me that it was okay. So, I bought a set of ribs and went to visit her family. Before we arrived, she told me about her family. Her parents had divorced due to her father's infidelity 10 years ago, and her mother raised her alone. Her mother was a young mother, having given birth in her early 20s. When I met her mother for the first time, she looked very young. Her skin was clear. She was beautiful and looked youthful. Without realizing, I commented, "Wow, you're so young." She responded to my comment with a bright smile, revealing her perfect teeth. Her mother was cheerful, and we clicked well. After a pleasant meal, I was glad that I had paid her a visit. According to my girlfriend, despite her mother's cheerful demeanor, she never showed interest in other men. However, as time passed, I became closer to my girlfriend's mother. She enjoyed hiking and suggested that we go to Guanak Mountain together. My girlfriend disliked hiking and refused to go, but I enjoyed it, so I accompanied her mother. She brought cucumber and snacks, and we sat at the summit of the mountain, enjoying the coffee she had brought while chatting. When I first met her mother, I thought she was a slightly youthful middle-aged woman, but after the hike, I felt closer to her. The vibrant look of a woman in her early to mid-40s was quite appealing. After descending the mountain, we went to a nearby restaurant and enjoyed a corn, jelly salad and rice wine. And that's when things took a turn. She told me about her difficult early married life. Her ex-husband was a company employee who drank every day. Even on weekends, he would go out drinking and only occasionally came home sober. One day, a woman called their home and said, "Let go of your husband. We are in a serious relationship." My girlfriend's mother, shocked and in disbelief, ended the call. After investigating, she found out that her husband had been dating a woman he met at a bar during a company dinner. He had lied to the woman, saying, "I'm a divorcee. My wife ignored me and cheated, so we divorced." However, women's intuition is strong. The mistress noticed that he didn't seem like a man living alone. His neat appearance, maintained by someone else's efforts, gave him away. One day, she finally asked if he was really divorced and suggested they live together. However, my girlfriend's father confessed, "No, I'm actually still married. My wife never cheated on me. I lied to you because I love you." He said that he forcibly obtained the home phone number to confirm his lie. It was shocking. He painted his perfectly fine wife as a cheating woman. After that, they got a divorce by mutual agreement. He put all his effort into their only daughter and managed to send her to a good university. My girlfriend told me that her grandfather was quite wealthy and had bought them a large house with 5 rooms. When they divorced, the house was put under her mother's name, and he provided child support and living expenses, so they were able to raise my girlfriend without much difficulty. As I heard about the hardships that my future mother-in-law had gone through, I respected her even more and raised my glass to her. That night, sparks flew between us, and we ended up in a motel near the entrance of the mountain. After her divorce, she hadn't been in a man's arms, and she held onto my arm, saying how satisfied she was. I also felt a different sensation from being with her compared to my girlfriend. We ended up repeating the act 2 more times. From that day on, she became my woman. Even when I was with my girlfriend, I found myself thinking about her mother. I invited her to join us on dates because I missed her. We went to the suburbs in my car, enjoyed delicious food, drank tea, and even went to see performances. Both my girlfriend and her mother enjoyed it. We continued this comfortable relationship until my girlfriend graduated from college and started working. My girlfriend landed a job at a newly opened company and was incredibly busy. She worked overtime almost every day and usually came home around midnight. Whenever my girlfriend worked late, her mother would inevitably call me. Even though I knew my girlfriend was working late, I still received calls from her mother. After the incident with her, I was conflicted about how to treat her. Using dinner as an excuse, she invited me over to her place. Since I hardly ever went home to eat after work, I would head over to her place. She had certifications in Korean and Western cooking. She prepared different main dishes and side dishes each time, and they were all delicious. I loved my girlfriend, but honestly, I also really liked my future mother-in-law. After dinner, the next course of action was obvious. A future mother-in-law who welcomed her daughter's overtime work so she could share love with her son-in-law. I spent 2 to 3 nights a week with her and spent about 1 day on the weekend on a date with my girlfriend. After being with her mother, I felt terrible guilt for betraying my girlfriend. However, seeing how happy her mother was with me also made me feel sympathetic. I wondered how much she must have struggled, raising her daughter alone while maintaining her cheerful and energetic facade. My girlfriend suggested we take a trip after her busy period at work was over. Her mother had never been to Canada before, so we decided to go to Canada together. The weather was great and we all had a fantastic time. On our last night at the hotel, we had a few drinks and her mother started to cry. She shared that she had faced many temptations from men while raising her daughter alone. She had been told countless times that a woman couldn't live alone, and that even if she had money, she needed a man's role in her life. She was advised to remarry quickly. However, she had been so disappointed in her husband that she had decided to live the rest of her life alone. Now that she had a son-in-law, she was content as long as we were happy. My girlfriend comforted her mother, saying that she had gone through a lot. I also held the two women I loved and cried with them. Through the trip, we became closer, and whenever her mother called, I would drop everything to meet her. Her mother would call me on days when my girlfriend had plans. She would shyly hand me side dishes and ribs, saying she had made too much. Her actions were so cute and lovable. After spending time with her mother, I would return home. When I visited my girlfriend's house, we would take a nap and sometimes be intimate. However, it was always for a very short time because we were careful. One day, her mother seemed to be acting a bit cold, as if she had noticed something. I called her that night and we spent time together. I think we will live together in my girlfriend's house once we have our wedding. On days when my girlfriend is not around, I will be able to spend time with her mother. I feel like I am walking on thin ice, knowing that we could get caught someday, but I can't give up either of them. Both women are precious to me. I, a man who is in love with both his girlfriend and her mother. What should I do? Who can stop the love between two adults? I can't just leave her mother alone. It's true that my desires have led me to this unconventional situation, but if you knew our future mother-in-law, you would understand why I am doing this. She is special to me.